Chapter 1. Raftru. Is this One Piece? It turns out this is One Piece. Is this really a One Piece? It turns out that this is what the historical text records, which is really interesting. The members of the Straw Hat Pirates were chattering around a big box, with various expressions of surprise, understanding, and excitement on their faces. And their captain, Straw Hat Luffy, was standing on the bow of the ship, covering his head with one hand. Wearing a straw hat, smiling in the sea breeze, showing 8 big white teeth. Standing behind him was Zoro, the three-sword swordsman, with his arms crossed and facing the sea breeze, with a green scarf tied to his arms, shaking in the wind. Zoro asked Luffy, "How do you feel now that you are the Pirate King?" "From the moment our pirate group was formed, I was already the Pirate King." Luffy suddenly fell back, hooked his feet on the bow of the Sunshine, and said to Zoro while hanging upside down, "Because the freest man on the sea is the Pirate King. What makes me happy are the adventures and companions along the way, not the title of One Piece." Luffy suddenly stood up and sat cross-legged on the bow of the boat, facing the sea breeze and said happily, "Everyone's dream has come true, Zoro. But I still want to continue taking risks. Now, I can understand what Roger did after finding the One Piece, he he he." Luffy laughed happily, as if he thought of something interesting. Zoro did not smile, but said with a serious face, "Luffy, since you frequently used second gear, then third and fourth gear. Your vitality is rapidly draining, and you have been coughing up blood recently. I'm afraid your lifespan is the same as Roger's back then. You don't have much left, right?" Zoro is the person in the Straw Hats who knows Luffy best, and he is also the person who knows his physical condition best. "Don't worry about the little things, Zoro. The remaining time is to continue the adventure." Luffy laughed heartily. "Continue the adventure? We've all traveled around the world, where else in the world is worth exploring?" Zoro asked doubtfully. Luffy ignored Zoro's doubts, turned around to face everyone, and shouted loudly, "Brothers! From today, now, from this moment on, Straw Hat Pirates! Disband! Hey! Ah!" Everyone screamed, only Zoro's lips curled up into a smile. Luffy opened his arms towards Zoro and said, "Zoro! I'm ready. I'm going on an adventure to the new world." Zoro was stunned for a moment, then immediately understood what Luffy meant. He smiled, took off the green scarf from his arm, tied it on his head hard, and said seriously, "Are you sure, Luffy? I just discovered a new way to use this trick, but it doesn't guarantee your safety." Luffy showed his big white teeth and smiled. "Of course. Can ensuring safety still be called an adventure? The thought of a new adventure makes me tremble with excitement." Zoro pulled out all 3 swords and assumed a 3-sword fighting posture. He said solemnly, "Luffy, then let me help you." Seeing the 2 people talking nicely, they suddenly started to fight, and the crew members gathered around. "Zoro! What are you doing?" Chopper exclaimed. "Bastard Zoro, how dare you swing your sword at the Pirate King?" Usopp took out a huge slingshot and pointed it at Zoro. Zoro turned a deaf ear. The sword was shining with cold air. Black-armed domineering energy wrapped around the blade, and the entire blade was covered with a layer of black energy. The 3 long knives slowly started to rotate. The blade sliced through the air, and the space seemed to begin to distort. The fishman Jinbei murmured solemnly, "Is this the legendary sword?" Soran began to read slowly. 9 mountains and 8 seas, 1 world. Bastard Zoro, I will bite you to death. Chopper jumped on Zoro's head and bit his turban. Zoro put Chopper's small hoof on his forehead, still looking directly at Luffy, and continued to read. When thousands of worlds are gathered together, they become small thousand worlds. When this world is multiplied by 3, it becomes 3,000 worlds. The 3 long knives were spinning faster and faster. In the white light formed by the intertwining of the knives, something appeared like a mirage, but I couldn't see clearly what it was. This move is too powerful, Luffy is in danger. Must kill Green Star Devil. Usopp shot the devil plant at Zoro. Huge fly traps grew under Zoro's feet and bit his legs. Zoro, are you serious? Nami was a little panicked when she saw that Zoro still didn't stop. Robin smiled at the sight and did not stop him. Oh ho ho ho, if Zoro wins, will the Straw Hat Pirates be called the Green Hood Pirates in the future? Brook was only a skeleton, with 2 eyeball-less eyes shining brightly. Zoro's body was covered with plants, with Chopper on his head, and he yelled. 1 big and 3,000. The world. As soon as Zoro finished speaking, 3 bright sword lights slashed towards Luffy. The 3 sword lights merged together in the air, forming a ball of light that enveloped Luffy. Luffy showed a standard smile in the ball of light. Waved goodbye to everyone. The ball of light disappeared. Luffy also disappeared. Usopp was shocked and asked Zoran. Where did you take Luffy? Zoran returned the knife to its sheath, pulled off the green turban on his head, and said with cold eyes, I don't know either. How can we bring Luffy back? Have no idea. Can we go find him? Have no idea. Idiot Zoro, why don't you know anything? Oh, you are so annoying. Chopper, don't bite my knife. Konoha village. The village is very lively with people coming and going. Haha, we have indeed arrived in a new world. Zoro's swordsmanship is really amazing. This place is a bit like the country of Wano. Luffy stood on a big tree, placing his palms on his forehead and looking at the leaf village. Puff Luffy suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. The reason for vomiting blood is because I am too hungry. It should be fine if I eat enough. Luffy wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth nonchalantly and walked happily towards the village. A bowl of ramen, right? Facing the question from the owner of the Ichiraku ramen shop, Uncle Hans, Naruto replied loudly. Yes, a bowl of ramen. Ramen is my favorite. Uncle Handbeat was amused by Naruto. He turned to Sasuke next to Naruto and asked. And you? Not going home for dinner today? Sasuke was not so cold at this time and answered politely, I also want a bowl of ramen. There is no one at home today, so I can only eat and then go back. It's rare. Mom isn't home either. It's rare to see Sasuke coming to eat noodles, so I started chatting with him. My mother is not here either, my brother is very busy, and there is no one at home today. Sasuke replied one by one. Naruto showed a look of envy next to him. Is this what it feels like to have a family? It doesn't seem to be that good. Aren't you living like me? Your face. The handmaid daughter Iris brought up 2 bowls of ramen and placed them in front of Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto, why are you bringing a bucket of paint? Icarus smiled and asked knowingly. A few days ago, everyone knew that he graffitied on the Hokage rock and was chased all over the street by Iruka-sensei. Do you want to continue your efforts and create greater glory this time? The person hurriedly waved his hands in denial and said, Nothing, nothing. Useful at home. Oh. Kang Pu nodded in sudden realization, pursed his lips and walked away with a smile. What a risk, almost discovered. Naruto patted his chest and said to himself. Looking at the steaming ramen in front of him, Naruto was in a good mood. Handmade ramen is the most delicious food in the world. The most delicious food? I want to eat it. A voice sounded in Naruto's ears. Chapter 2. The sound was so close to Naruto's ears that it startled him. As soon as he turned his head, he saw a young man wearing a red vest and blue shorts sticking next to him. The young man was wearing a straw hat, and his head had already been extended to the side of the ramen bowl. He had a salivating expression on his face, and his 2 big nostrils were desperately inhaling the aroma of ramen. Naruto was worried that the other person's saliva would drip into his noodles, and quickly reminded him, Hey, don't get so close to me. Be careful with your saliva. Bang! Before he finished speaking, Luffy kicked the paint bucket under his feet, making a loud noise. Ah, sorry. When Luffy apologized, his eyes never left the bowl of ramen. Naruto trembled in fright, looked around guiltily, and found that no one was paying attention to him. Then he turned his head and looked at Luffy carefully. He has a strange face. He has never been seen in the village before. Naruto's eyes went back and forth several times between the paint bucket, ramen, and Luffy under the table. He rolled his eyes and had an idea in his mind. I'll treat you to ramen. After you finish eating, how about you do me a favor? Naruto asked in a consultative tone. Really? You are such a good person. After Luffy heard the words please eat ramen, he couldn't hear anything else. Without saying a word, he immediately picked up the ramen bowl and drank it all in a few mouthfuls. Ah, this noodle is so delicious. Luffy sighed with satisfaction. Naruto was about to speak out his request. Luffy yelled at the ramen shop owner boss. Another bowl. Hey, et. It was too late for Naruto to stop him. Naruto thought about what he wanted Luffy to do next, and thought to himself for that, a bowl of ramen is really not enough. It's not a loss to spend an extra bowl of noodles and see Iruka-sensei and the ninjas furious without having to do anything yourself. Boss, have another bowl. Just when Naruto was thinking, Luffy finished another bowl. Et. Oops, there was no time to stop him. Forget it, I can afford 3 bowls. Naruto thought to himself. Boss, have another bowl. Luffy raised his hand again and shouted. 4 bowls is fine, the more you eat, the more you do. Naruto put his hand into his pocket and pinched his wallet. 1 more bowl. 5 bowls is my final bottom line. No matter how many more, I will definitely stop him. 1 more bowl. 1 more bowl. Looking at the ramen bowls stacked next to Luffy, Naruto gritted his teeth and thought to himself, I've already eaten 19 bowls anyway, let him make up 20 bowls. Sasuke next to him had already finished eating. Looking at Luffy's neat way of eating noodles, not a drop of soup was left in each bowl. He lowered his head silently and took a few mouthfuls of soup. Naruto kept sitting there, watching the other person eating noodles, with a very confused expression on his face. Sasuke asked strangely, Naruto, don't you want to eat noodles? The two of them walked into the Ichiraku ramen house at the same time. Sasuke had finished eating, and there was not a bowl of noodles in front of Naruto. Luffy heard Sasuke speak, and turned to look at Naruto and asked, that's right, aren't you going to eat? This ramen is really delicious. Naruto was asked by 2 people at the same time. He looked at the pile of empty bowls again and gritted his teeth and said, no. Hungry. So, is it because I'm not hungry? When you are hungry, you must eat. Luffy showed an expression of sudden realization, lowered his head and continued to eat noodles. Sasuke walked out of the Ichiraku ramen shop, and was very curious. I don't know what kind of help Naruto asked him to do, and he actually invited him to eat so many bowls of ramen. When the bowls next to Luffy piled up into a hill, and Naruto was unable to stop it. At this time, Uncle Handbeater came over. This little guy, there are not enough bowls for noodles in the store. Naruto raised his head suddenly, feeling ecstatic in his heart. It's great to hit Uncle with your hands. There shouldn't be so many bowls in a ramen restaurant. Ah, no bowl? What a pity, I haven't had enough yet. Luffy touched his belly and said regretfully. Can you bring the pot over to eat? Luffy suddenly asked sincerely. Can't. Naruto and Icarus blurted out at the same time. Icarus mainly felt that eating in front of the pot was too dirty. Naruto really had no money, so he blurted out subconsciously. Luffy scratched his head and asked, is the pot too heavy? I can help. Shouta smiled and said, the noodles in the pot have also been eaten up. Come again next time. Yeah. Marvelous. A little person jumped up in Naruto's heart and punched the air happily. Ramen restaurants shouldn't prepare so much dough. That was such a shame, I wasn't full yet. Uncle, the ramen you make is super delicious. Luffy said regretfully. Naruto said in his heart, aren't you full yet? I didn't even eat a bowl of noodles today. What am I doing? If I had known this, I would have gone to Hokage Rock to cause trouble myself. Now that all the money has been spent and there are sunk costs, Naruto can only continue. Uncle Shouta packed up the pile of bowls like a hill and said to Luffy, you have been running a noodle shop for so many years, and you are the first one who can do it. A customer who ate 32 bowls of noodles at one time. Yeah? But I'm not full yet. I can break this record next time. Luffy touched his belly and stood up. There won't be a next time, Naruto thought as he squeezed his empty wallet. Luffy smiled and stretched out a hand towards Naruto and said, I was so hungry just now that I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Monkey D. Luffy came from another world to have adventures. Forward, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto shook hands with the other party and responded casually. No, another world? Adventure? Is this man a lunatic? Naruto heard such abnormal words and suddenly felt a pain in his chest. His money might have been wasted. Thanks for the treat and goodbye. Luffy raised his legs and walked out. Wait. Naruto carried the paint bucket and chased out. Luffy turned around and asked, is something wrong? As I said just now, if I treat you to some noodles, you have to do me a favor. Ah, is this happening? Luffy recalled what Naruto said just now, and only remembered the words please eat ramen. Forget it, I ate your ramen, so I should help. What do you need me to do? Naruto secretly broke into a cold sweat, it's so dangerous. Fortunately, he didn't default on the bill. Otherwise I'll be at a loss. He handed over the bucket of paint in his hand and said, use this bucket of paint to draw on the Hokage Rock. No problem. Can I draw anything? Luffy took the paint bucket and promised. It can't be considered painting, it should be scribbling. The messy the painting, the better. Naruto explained. Doodle? It's so fun, I can do this. Luffy became excited when he heard it. Naruto thought for a while and said 1 week. You have to draw on Hokage Rock every day for a week. If there are people during the day, go at night and be sure not to be caught. Originally, Naruto wanted Luffy to just apply Hokage Rock once, but he didn't expect that the other party would eat 32 bowls of ramen at once. Therefore, he extended his help time, which can be considered as a way to recover some losses. Oh. No problem. Don't worry. Luffy agreed readily, turned around and left with the paint bucket. Seeing the other person's confidence, Naruto felt comforted. The money was not wasted after all. The Hokage Rock can be seen when looking up, it is very eye-catching. Is there anyone who doesn't know? The next week will be lively. The more Naruto thought about it, the happier he became. Suddenly his stomach growled. Oh, no money. I can only go back to eat instant noodles. Luffy carried the paint bucket and strode down the streets of Konoha village. This is really like the country of Wano. Suddenly, he stopped and stretched out his hand to scratch the back of his head. Where did the guy named Naruto just say he was painting? Naruto what? Luffy stopped a passing farmer and asked, excuse me, uncle, what is Naruto? The farmer was shocked. Don't you even know Naruto? He is the leader of all ninjas in the village. Naruto is the leader of all ninjas, so he should be very powerful. Luffy asked, touching his chin. Of course, Lord Hokage is the strongest ninja in the village. The farmer said proudly. No wonder Naruto asked me for help. He really couldn't put paint on such a powerful person. Luffy felt that he was quite smart without Robin and Nami to help him analyze. Luffy asked, then where are the others? The farmer pointed to the tall building in the center of the village and said, that is the residence of the Hokage. It's pretty easy to find. What does he look like? Luffy asked again. The farmer pointed to a huge rock and said that is the statue of the past Hokages. The third one is what the current Hokage looks like. Ah, it's a boss. How dare you? You should call me Hokage-sama, the farmer scolded. Ouch. No problem. Luffy agreed readily and walked towards the Hokage's residence. What an interesting mission, the new world is fun, hee hee hee. Chapter 3. Late at night. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was sleeping soundly in bed. The moon was sparse, and silver moonlight spread through the window and onto the ground. A sharp-edged window frame is projected on the ground. Suddenly, a head wearing a straw hat appeared in the window frame. He looked at the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was lying on the bed, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, revealing a row of neat and white teeth. The head wearing a straw hat quietly retracted. A hand holding a paintbrush slipped through the window like a snake. The third Hokage suddenly smelled a strong smell of paint, and then felt cold on his body, as if a giant python was licking his body. He jumped out of bed suddenly. Is there an enemy attack? An enemy would actually come to the Hokage's residence in Konoha village to attack him? Simply unheard of. Sarutobi Hiruzen then saw a supernatural scene. A long arm. Although I don't know why the arm is so long, it is indeed an arm. Because there is a palm at the end, and the palm firmly grasps a brush dripping with red paint. The arm holding the paintbrush swayed around the room, like a giant python waiting for an opportunity to attack Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sarutobi Hiruzen ignored the paint on his body and maintained his fighting posture, looking at the hand warily. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Illusion? Or sorcery? Look at the arms twisting like snakes. As a ninjutsu professor, Hiruzen Sarutobi thought of his disciple Orochimaru, but he could not think of anyone else who was proficient in this type of ninjutsu. Moreover, Orochimaru has a motive to attack the village. Is it Orochimaru? Come out! Sarutobi Hiruzen ignored the paint on his body and shouted vigilantly toward the window. You didn't come here just to get paint all over me, right? The other party didn't respond. The hand holding the paintbrush waved in the air a few times, as if looking for a target, and then nimbly flew towards Sarutobi Hiruzen's face. After all, Sarutobi Hiruzen was the Hokage, and his body was flexible, while avoiding the paintbrush attacked and counterattacked by throwing a kunai. This hand seemed to have eyes, and it easily evaded the kunai. And no matter how hard Sarutobi Hiruzen tried to dodge, the paintbrush kept chasing him, almost missing him several times. He was confused. Just when the two sides were at loggerheads, Sarutobi Hiruzen heard a strange voice coming from outside the window. Rubber machine gun. As soon as the voice fell, the hand holding the paintbrush hit Hiruzen Sarutobi like a violent storm. Hey! Taijutsu! Sarutobi Hiruzen was unable to dodge and was hit several times in the face by the paintbrush. He was shocked. If he was holding a kunai, wouldn't he be able to poke several holes in his body? Just when Sarutobi Hiruzen was in doubt, the unfamiliar voice burst into laughter, and the painter's hand withdrew from the window. There was just no movement outside the window. Sarutobi Hiruzen ignored the pungent smell of paint and immediately checked whether he had been hit by ninjutsu or genjutsu. When he discovered that there was no ninjutsu illusion on his body, he was just covered in red paint. He was puzzled. What was the purpose of the other party doing this? The other party evaded the vigilance of the police force outside the village, and also evaded the ANBU sentry, and got into the house where the Hokage lived. Just to cover him with paint? It would be easy to poke a few holes in his body with a kunai. But the other party chose the most insulting and most barraged style of play. It looked like it was just a prank. There is no such thing as simplicity in the adult world. Things can never be that simple. Sarutobi Hiruzen rushed out of the window decisively. He stood on the roof and looked around. The moonlight shone on the deserted Konoha village. The streets were empty and he didn't find any suspicious traces. It's absolutely impossible for the enemy to pay such a high price just to cover themselves with paint, right? There must be a big conspiracy. What is the specific conspiracy? A ninja who can run away silently under his nose should not be an unknown person. Is it really Orochimaru? It didn't sound like the sound just now. Two black shadows flashed past. The ANBU ninja on duty appeared in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen. They saw the third Hokage wearing pajamas and red paint. Smelling the pungent smell of paint, the two ANBU members looked at each other, not daring to ask any more questions. Perhaps Hokage-sama is researching some new ninjutsu? Did you find anyone suspicious just now? Sarutobi Hiruzen asked. Two ANBU ninjas knelt on one knee and replied, there is nothing unusual, Hokage-sama. Just now, something ran out of my window. Didn't you see it? Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't believe it and asked again. An ANBU ninja said, we saw you rushing out of the window and rushed over immediately. Didn't see anything else. Sarutobi Hiruzen confirmed again. No. The two ANBU ninjas shook their heads together. This is strange. These two ANBU ninjas are elite jounin. They were personally selected by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Their strength must be no problem. He saw a hand reaching out from the window with his own eyes. The enemy must be standing outside the window. The two of them didn't notice it at all. Could it be that they were hallucinating? But the red paint couldn't be fake, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned when he smelled the paint on his body. He thought of Naruto, who had also used paint to make pranks recently. Naruto definitely didn't have that strength. He shook his head and immediately rejected this ridiculous idea. Even if Naruto mastered the Nine Tails chakra, he couldn't do it. The tailed beast chakra is so violent that it will alarm the entire village of ninjas the moment it is released. What kind of ninja can suppress his own chakras so well? When thinking, Sarutobi Hiruzen habitually reach out and touch your beard. Oops! Sarutobi Hiruzen's beard was covered with red paint. He reached out and touched it and it stuck to his hand, and he pulled a few strands off. Tomorrow, all strangers in the village will be carefully checked. Especially strange ninjas. Yes. The two ANBU ninjas immediately responded respectfully. Looking at the two people leaving, Hiruzen Sarutobi looked down at the paint on his body. He said to himself, after this person succeeds, he probably won't come back tomorrow. You can only start with strangers who have recently entered the village. Humph, I want to see who it is. Under the moonlight, a young man wearing a straw hat ran happily forward with a paint bucket. Luffy stopped beside a long river. Except for the chirping of birds and insects, there was no one else around. Luffy stood by the river with a paint bucket and laughed, ha ha ha, that's really interesting. Fortunately, I was smart and not only asked where the Hokage lived, but also found out who the Hokage was. Otherwise, it would be very bad if you paint the wrong person. It turns out that old man is Hokage. Well, your surname is Huo? Ninjas have really weird names. Goo 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 goo. Luffy touched his stomach and said, oh, I'm so hungry. There must be a lot of wild beasts in this forest. It seems like it's back to the time when I was training with Rayleigh. I really miss it. Luffy put down the paint bucket and catapulted deep into the forest. Chapter 4. Outside Konoha village. Beside the Nanhi River. The frightened roars and screams of wild beasts came from the forest late at night. After a while, a bonfire was lit on the bank of Nanhi River. Plop! Luffy threw the last animal bone aside, rubbed his belly and said with satisfaction. Hiccup, I am full. Next to it. The white animal bones piled up into a hill. The Nanga River flowed quietly. Luffy lay on the grass a little bored and said to himself, my friends are not around, how boring it is. Usually at this time, everyone is already happily holding a banquet together. The dreams of our partners have come true, and they all want to return to their hometowns to reunite with their relatives. Luffy has known his fate for a long time, and he did it at his own will to adventure in another world, and he does not want to embarrass his friends. Once this mission is completed, leave here and continue your adventure. A voice came from behind Luffy. Are you not full after eating so much ramen during the day? Sasuke didn't know when he appeared behind Luffy and asked, looking at the hill-like animal bones next to him. Luffy turned his head and took a look and said, although the ramen is delicious, it is too little and I can't be full at all. Sasuke couldn't help but twitched the corner of his mouth. Is eating 32 bowls of noodles too little? Is this still a human stomach? The Uchiha clan's clan is on the edge of the Nanga River, on the edge of Konoha. This forest is Sasuke's. The place where he practiced ninjutsu with his brother Itachi. His brother was not here today, and Sasuke practiced ninjutsu alone until late at night. Sasuke, who had not practiced ninjutsu with him for a long time, was attracted by the bonfire and found the person sitting by the river. The Straw Hat Boy at Ichiraku Ramen Shop. Too little? You have eaten 32 bowls of ramen. Sasuke usually doesn't talk much, but when he saw Luffy's appetite, he couldn't help complaining. Luffy suddenly stopped smiling, sat up and said seriously, in my hometown of Donghai, there is a famous saying. Sasuke saw Luffy's serious face and couldn't help but asked seriously, what famous quote? When you are hungry, you must eat until you are full. Sasuke was stunned for a moment, then he couldn't help laughing and said, what kind of famous saying is this? It's obviously you who made the nonsense. I don't know why, but Sasuke chatted with Luffy for a few words, and the depression of not seeing his brother has been relieved a lot. The cheerful temperament that this Straw Hat Boy inadvertently reveals can always make the chat atmosphere happy. What? It's obviously a very useful quote. I always remember that there is nothing wrong with it. Luffy fell back and lay back on the grass. Sasuke smiled and sat next to the campfire and asked, my name is Sasuke, what's your name? My name is Monkey D. Luffy came from another world to adventure. Luffy said, looking at the stars. Adventure? Another world? Sasuke asked curiously. There is nothing adventurous about Konoha village. Sasuke was born in Konoha, and his daily life consisted of eating, sleeping, and practicing ninjutsu. Even if he entered a ninja school, he would just practice ninjutsu in another place. He had no friends in school, and his life was extremely boring. He could only practice ninjutsu with his brother. To Sasuke, Konoha village is very boring and does not seem like a place where he can take risks. Exploring the unknown is adventure. Luffy said, looking at the starry sky. Is exploring the unknown an adventure? Sasuke repeated this sentence. Adventure is something he has never thought about. In the dictionary of ninjas, there are only tasks, discipline, assassination, etc., but there are no words like freedom and adventure. Is it fun to take risks? Sasuke asked after thinking about it. Yes, it's so interesting. If I couldn't take the risk, I'd rather die. Luffy said with a smile. Sasuke's expression changed and he said, is it really that interesting? However, my family wants me to become an excellent ninja. I probably won't have the chance to take the risk. Sasuke looked at Luffy's confident look and suddenly felt a little envious. Adventure has been my dream since childhood. What is your dream? Luffy asked. Sasuke thought for a moment and said, my family hopes that I will become a ninja as powerful as Hokage's father, Sarutobi Sasuke. So I was named Uchiha Sasuke. You keep talking about other people's hopes. Where is your dream? Luffy interrupted Sasuke and asked in a more serious tone. Sasuke hesitated. Speak of your dreams, not what others hope for you. Luffy looked into Sasuke's eyes and asked again. Ninjas have been taught since childhood to obey orders and complete tasks. They rarely have their own ideas. Luffy asked this question, which stopped Sasuke. My dream? It seemed like it had never occurred to me. Sasuke looked at the blazing bonfire and murmured to himself. Luffy looked up and fell on the grass again, with his hands on the back of his head and said, everyone has their own dreams. If you think about it carefully, you will definitely be able to come up with it. Does everyone have one? Of course. The next day, Sarutobi Hiruzen slept very restlessly tonight. The ANBU ninjas had been busy all day, but there was no news about last night's attacker. The attacker seemed to appear in Konoha village out of thin air. Who would have thought that Naruto would be attacked in the Leaf village? This has never happened since the founding of Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen himself couldn't think of it. If the opponent holds a sharp weapon, Hiruzen Sarutobi will become the first Hokage to be assassinated in Konoha village. Just when he was drowsy and half asleep, he seemed to smell the familiar smell of paint again. He opened his eyes suddenly and saw a bright red paintbrush silently stopping at the tip of his nose. Puff! Before he could react, the paintbrush hit him completely in the face. The bright red paint was smeared all over his face, making him so blurry that he couldn't even open his eyes. Ah! No matter how calm Sarutobi Hiruzen was, he couldn't help but scream when faced with such a sudden thing. This time, his hand still came in through the window. Sarutobi Hiruzen could no longer see anything in his eyes, and his combat experience made him. He jumped up from the bed and ran towards the door in the direction he remembered. Bang! He opened the door and rushed out of the room. He should leave immediately to avoid fighting with the opponent. When he reached out to wipe away the red paint on his eyes, the hand in the room was no longer covered with paint for no reason, and Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but feel angry. Damn it! Yesterday, the two ANBU ninjas heard the noise and rushed in immediately. Before they could say anything, Sarutobi Hiruzen asked with a gloomy face, didn't you see anyone again this time? The two ANBU ninjas saw that Hokage-sama was attacked twice but failed to protect him. They said with shame. Subordinate, didn't really see anyone. As the Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen was teased for 2 days in a row, but he didn't even see what the other person looked like. He was no longer calm and said fiercely, send 10 ANBU ninjas to attack this building tomorrow night. Surround. Chapter 5. Last night, Sasuke didn't shout out his dreams like a hot-blooded boy. Because he really doesn't know his dream. It was impossible for Luffy to make an immediate decision just by asking. After chatting with the strange Straw Hat Boy last night, Sasuke began to think about dreams. It turns out that everyone can have their own dreams. Even if you want to be a stone? What a strange metaphor. After school, Sasuke sat in a tree in a daze, thinking about what Luffy said yesterday. Isn't it a dream to have my brother practice ninjutsu with me every day? Sasuke. Suddenly a voice sounded, interrupting Sasuke's thoughts. Under the tree stood a boy wearing black-rimmed glasses, chubby and short, with the Uchiha clan emblem also printed on his back. This boy's name is Uchiha Take. Sasuke's friend. The Uchiha clan is ostracized in the village. Sasuke doesn't talk much, so he can't make many friends in the ninja school. Uchiha Take is one of them. When it comes to gossip, you have to talk to someone about any trivial things. Sasuke, who doesn't like to talk, is the best person to talk to. Sasuke, are you practicing ninjutsu again? Uchiha Take jumped up the tree and sat side by side with Sasuke. You can't become the best ninja if you only practice ninjutsu. What do you need to do to become the top ninja? Sasuke asked. You must learn to obtain information and use it well to become the most powerful weapon. My dream is to become an intelligence expert. With information that others don't know, it is possible to defeat enemies who are stronger than you. Uchiha Takebo talked non-stop as soon as he came up. Sasuke's eyes lit up when he heard the word dream. Is your dream to become an intelligence expert? Ah, yes. Uchiha Take replied. How did you find your dream? Sasuke asked. How did you find it? Uchiha Take asked strangely, is it still necessary to look for it? What you dream about is your dream. Thinking about it in a dream. Suzuki repeated in a murmured voice. It's something that is usually difficult to do and something that only dreams come true. Uchiha Take put out his fat arm and hooked Sasuke's shoulder, lowered his voice and said, "Stop talking about these boring things. Suzuki, do you know what adults are doing these days? In the past few days, the adults in the clan have been meeting mysteriously in the ancestral temple. After the meeting, everyone looked solemn, something was wrong anyway." Suzuki couldn't tell what was wrong, he just felt different from usual. "You know." Uchiha Take's words aroused Sasuke's curiosity. The Uchiha adults gathered at the ancestral temple every now and then, and no news came out after the meeting. In the past, after the clan meeting, the things discussed would be publicly announced. But this there was no movement at all several times. All the children in the clan were very curious. Uchiha Take suddenly said that he knew the content of the meeting, and Suzuki was of course very interested. "There is no news that I don't know," Uchiha Take said very proudly. "Then tell me quickly," Suzuki urged. Uchiha Take looked around, lowered his voice and said, "You must not tell others, especially your brother." He also knew that Suzuki and Ataka had a very good relationship. The two often practiced ninjutsu together, so he gave special instructions. "When have I ever revealed a secret? Just say it," Suzuki assured. "I waited outside my parents' bedroom for a long time last night, finally waiting for them to finish fighting, finally able to tell others the secret," Uchiha Take said very excitedly. "Fight? Do your parents fight every night?" Suzuki felt strange when he heard this and couldn't help but interrupt. "Forward, not every day either." "No, don't worry about these details." Uchiha Takeuchi changed the topic and said. But Suzuki wanted to continue asking, but was interrupted by Uchiha Take. "Tisk, don't interrupt me, Suzuki. Do you still listen? Say it quickly, say it quickly." Suzuki still wanted to hear about major events within the clan. Uchiha Takeru cleared his throat, as if to announce a major event and said. "The clan leader is going to be Hokage." "Clan leader?" Suzuki didn't react for a moment. After a few seconds, he asked with disbelief, "Father, you want to be Hokage? Even if the ninjas of Konoha don't understand their parents, they don't understand Naruto. Suzuki knows very well that you can be the Hokage if you want to be. It requires strength, background, prestige, connections, etc. His father should be pretty good. The current situation of the Uchiha clan, the other conditions have nothing to do with his father, right?" Uchiha Ju scratched his head with his chubby hands and said, "I didn't hear the reason either. But my father himself said that when the clan leader becomes Hokage, things will get better for us Uchiha. Why don't you go to my parents tonight after the fight, and I can find out more?" Suzuki laughed when he heard this. "You did a terrible job in intelligence work. Your father was just joking, how could he take it seriously?" Uchiha Take said seriously, "Suzuki, you can doubt my character, but you cannot doubt my professionalism. I'm a ninja who wants to become an intelligence expert. Can I still not tell whether what my father said is true or false?" No matter how Uchiha Take explains, Suzuki just doesn't believe it. There is no other evidence, just these 1 or 2 sentences, it can't be counted. "I also said that I want to be Hokage?" Although Suzuki didn't believe it, he didn't refute it blindly. He seeing Uchiha Ju's face flushed with anxiety, he quickly said, "Your analysis is right. I believe it." "Do you really believe it?" Uchiha Take looked at Sasuke's face through his thick glasses and asked. "Believe it, believe it. From now on, I will be the Hokage's son, so please show some respect to me." The two looked at each other and laughed. Suddenly, there was a noisy sound in the forest. All the animals in the forest were running and howling together, as if they were being chased by some terrible beast. I remember there were no wild beasts around here. Uchiha Take said strangely. He saw a huge rhinoceros rushing out of the forest. When he ran closer, he realized that there was a person on the back of the rhinoceros. He grabbed the rhinoceros horns firmly with both hands and became furious. No matter how the rhinoceros runs and jumps, it just can't get rid of this man. Giant horned rhinoceros. This is a giant horned rhinoceros. Uchiha Take recognized the species of this rhinoceros and shouted excitedly. The number of giant horned rhinos is very small. How did he find it? While the two of them were stunned, the rhinoceros had already run away. Uchiha Zhu jumped down from the tree with excitement on his face, and followed him with a pair of chubby legs. Sasuke. I gonna go see. Sasuke looked at Uchiha Take's back and chased after him. Chapter 6. Luffy took back the hands holding the rhinoceros horn, then stretched his right hand far behind him, muttering rubber pistol. Luffy punched the rhinoceros on the head. Bang! Boom! The huge body of the rhinoceros fell by the Nanga River, and the ground trembled. Uchiha Takeru, who came after him, only saw a straw hat boy standing on a hill next to the rhinoceros. He looked at the rhinoceros on the ground and said in surprise, "You killed it." Uchiha Take then thought that the giant horned rhinoceros was probably exhausted after running so far. This was a good time to take action. Seeing that he didn't have a ninja forehead protector on his forehead, as an ordinary person, he could do this. Very powerful too. This giant horned rhinoceros is a rare species. Its horns can be sold for a lot of money. Luffy was not interested in rhino horns and said casually. "Yeah? If you want it, I can give it to you. I'm hungry and just want to eat meat." Uchiha Take's eyes lit up when he heard this. Another advantage of the giant horned rhinoceros is that its meat is delicious. You are so discerning. Ah, great! Luffy almost drooled when he heard the words delicious meat. Luffy got a dagger from somewhere and cut open the rhinoceros's belly with one clean cut. He grabbed the long wooden stick prepared on the side. The rhinoceros was impaled in one go. The huge rhinoceros was like a toy in his hand. This light-weighted state immediately restrained Uchiha Bamboo. Reach into the river, shake it vigorously, stir up splashes of water, and then place the rhinoceros whole on the bonfire. Wait a minute. When Uchiha Take saw this, he suddenly interrupted Luffy's actions. Are you just going to eat giant horned rhinos? Uchiha Takeru looked incredulous. Yes. Luffy replied naturally. Ouch, what a waste. Uchiha Take said distressedly, you can't do this. Oops, you really have no cooking skills at all. Luffy's eyes lit up and he asked, are you good at cooking? What is this word? Please call me Master Chef. Uchiha Take said quite proudly. He usually made delicious food by himself, and became the only fat ninja in the Uchiha clan. Seeing that the ingredients that could have been made into delicious food were wasted like this, there was a kind of pain in my heart, like burning a harp and cooking a crane. During the 2 years when Luffy and Rayleigh were training, they killed wild beasts and cooked barbecue every day on the uninhabited island. Luffy immediately put a rhino in his hand. The wooden stick was handed over and he shouted. Here you go, celebrity chef. Hey, hey. Uchiha Takeshita took the wooden stick and with a bang, the huge rhinoceros fell directly to the ground. This man is so strong. Seeing how easily Luffy could hold it, Uchiha Take thought that the whole rhino didn't weigh much, but when he tried it with his own hands, he realized that he couldn't lift it at all, and he couldn't help but be secretly surprised. Forget it, just leave it on the ground and deal with it. He took Luffy's dagger and started peeling off the skin. Oh! Luffy's eyes were full of stars, and he nodded in agreement. Uchiha Zhu cut off the meat of the giant rhinoceros piece by piece and placed it on the grass just like a butcher cutting an ox. Bamboo, what are you doing like this? Sasuke caught up and saw that Uchiha Take was skinning and cutting the meat of a rhinoceros. Luffy looked like a greedy cat, sitting next to him and watching Uchiha Take handle the rhinoceros, as if he had returned to the sunshine and watched Sanji cooking in the kitchen. Time. How long has this been missed? How did it develop like this? I'm making a barbecue. Uchiha Takeru lowered his head and answered, his hands kept busy. He cut the cut meat into pieces and threaded them one by one with wooden sticks. He also took out a small jar from his pocket, which contained salt and other seasonings. He skillfully spread the seasoning evenly on the meat skewers and stick them one by the campfire. What I want to ask is, why do you make barbecue? Why is there such a thing as salt in your ninja fanny pack? Sasuke had a dark look on his face. The ninja's belt bags are full of kunao, detonating charms and other ninja tools. What kind of ninja would carry salt and seasonings in his belt bag? No wonder this guy, always ranks last in the ninjutsu competitions within the clan. 1. This is not focusing on training at all. Luffy started to drool as he smelled the smell of meat. Celebrity chef. Will you join my pirate team and be my first partner? Luffy extended an invitation to Uchiha Take with his eyes shining. Luffy suddenly felt that he still needed to find a few partners, especially chefs and musicians. Otherwise, there would be a lot less fun on the adventure. When he first went to sea, the first person he looked for was the powerful Zoro. Now that he is strong enough, he no longer needs to consider the combat capabilities of his partners. The name of the team is still Straw Hat Pirates, and Luffy doesn't want to give the team a new name. As for why the pirates didn't go to sea, Luffy never thought about these things. After all, they were wandering in the desert during their adventure in Alabasta, and they were still called the Straw Hat Pirates. Pirates? What it is? Uchiha Take obviously did not keep up with Luffy's rhythm. Luffy ate the meat and said proudly, if you agree, you can become the partner of the Pirate King and become the first crew member of the Straw Hat Pirates in this world. One Piece? Never heard of that. Luffy was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, I'll hear about it later. Because my name will ring throughout the world. Uchiha Take Ichi stretched out his hand and said, stop it. You should give up on this idea. I can't swim, so I definitely won't become a pirate. Luffy said happily. Great. I can't swim either. Uchiha Take looked at Luffy's straw hat and complained, you want to establish a combat team, right? Take this, the wording can be arbitrary. Luffy touched his chin with his hand and said stubbornly, really? However, I decided to call the Straw Hat Pirates. Up to you. But I won't join this team of idiots. Uchiha Take distributed the grilled meat skewers to Luffy and Sasuke, saying with disgust. Yo, Sasuke, you're here too. Luffy's eyes followed the skewers, and then he realized that Sasuke was standing next to him. Oh, how big are you? How much does this guy love to eat? I've been standing there for so long without seeing him. He can indeed eat 32 bowls of ramen. Man. Sasuke thought a lot, but he still replied politely, hello. Bamboo is not a chef. His dream is to be an intelligence expert. Sasuke thought of Luffy's question about his dream yesterday, and opened his mouth to explain to Uchiha Take. It smells so good. Luffy ate the whole skewer of meat in one bite and praised it. Celebrity chefs and intelligence experts? That's great. I made a decision. You join my pirate team. Don't make decisions on your own, asshole. I clearly rejected you just now. Uchiha Take refused again. Ha ha ha, think about it again. Whatever happens to you, I will protect you. Luffy took off 3 skewers of meat in one go. Do I, a ninja of the Uchiha clan, still need your protection? Uchiha Takeru snorted, not to be outdone, and ate 3 meat skewers in one bite. Seeing this, Luffy reached out and picked up 4 skewers and ate them in one go. Are the Uchiha clan invincible? Uchiha Take immediately picked up 5 skewers and stuffed them into his mouth. Well, of course. Enough is enough, you two. Is there a winner or loser in this kind of thing? Suzuki stopped their wasteful behavior. Of course. The two said in unison. The two of them seemed to be competing, after eating a lot of meat. Of course, Uchiha Take couldn't compare to Luffy, and he was very unconvinced and lost. He actually lost in the eating competition. Ha ha ha. Luffy laughed happily. Let's have a party. Luffy stood up with a handful of meat skewers in each hand and suggested with excitement. Open, banquet? Why? Suzuki asked. Do you still need a reason to hold a party? Luffy took a big mouthful of skewers and waved the meat skewers in his hand, saying vaguely. Bring it on. Let's have a party. Luffy stood up, walked to the bonfire, and shouted to the two of them. When I was adventuring on Sky Island, I learned a kind of dance that must be performed at a banquet. It was very fun. Come together. Suzuki and Uchiha Take looked at each other, and both saw the eagerness and desire in each other's eyes. They were both infected by Luffy's cheerfulness and enthusiasm. Ninjas need purpose and reason to do things. Because what they learn every day is tolerance technique, assassination, mission, discipline. He has almost no personality, just living to make himself a sharp knife. So when Luffy asked Suzuki about his dream, Uchiha Ju held hands with Luffy. The bonfire was twisting and dancing wildly. Suzuki. Come together. Suzuki sat by the campfire, looking at it with a bit of envy, but there was still no end. I want to be a powerful ninja like my brother, and I have to control my emotions. I can't let my guard down completely like this, Suzuki secretly thought in his heart. Office of Roots. Danzo sat on a chair and closed his eyes to relax. Mountain Wind came in. Grown-ups. There is a situation on the Hokage's side. Chapter 7. Danzo sat in the large armchair in Northeast by East's office and closed his eyes to meditate. The wind next to the mountain is reporting the situation. Sir, tonight at the Hokage-sama's residence, 4 Jounin and 8 Chiyunin were transferred from the ANBU to tighten the surroundings. Duanzo closed his eyes and listened quietly without any expression on his face. According to the reply from our informant in ANBU, it seems that they are hunting ghosts. The mountain wind continued. Danzo opened his eyes with a meaningful smile on his face. Ghost hunting? I think it's just a pretense. Arrange dozens of ANBU elites to ambush. No matter what he wants to deal with, the opponent must have the corresponding strength. We need to understand how such a powerful force entered Konoha silently. Danzo was also puzzled. Shanfeng asked tentatively, Sir, what should we do? Danzo closed his eyes again. Just send someone to keep an eye on it. Yes. The third day, late at night. Outside the Hokage's residence. Dozens of ANBU ninjas were lying in wait in every hidden corner. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, used his body as bait, but still slept on the bed as usual. The ANBU ninjas didn't know exactly what they were dealing with. According to the description of the ANBU ninja who had experienced the previous 2 nights, the enemy was a hand. It should be said that he is a ninja who can stretch his hands. Is there any ninjutsu that can lengthen various parts of the body? This ninja's wife must be very happy. Attack the Hokage and paint the Hokage with red paint. This is an insult to Naruto and the entire Konoha ninja. That ninja probably wanted to declare a challenge to the Leaf Village in this way. That's for sure. All ANBU ninjas felt the same and were filled with anger. He vowed to catch this arrogant ninja. The moon above my head gradually moved, and time passed slowly. Everyone is also wondering, will the enemy launch an attack on the same place for 3 consecutive days? Would he do something so stupid? Luffy was holding the paint bucket and standing at a corner dozens of meters away, with a big smile on his face. Hehe, it seems that there have been a lot more guards. The domineering look made him easily perceive all the ANBU ninjas. Luffy's arm holding the paintbrush became flat and hung to the ground. The arm slowly grew longer, and moved tightly against the wall towards the Hokage's residence. The arm just like a snake approaching its prey, it tried different directions of attack, but after changing positions, it was impossible to find a way to sneak into the Hokage's residence. All possible sneak attack positions were guarded by experienced ANBU ninjas. Fei touched his chin and said to himself, it seems like I can't sneak in like I did a few days ago. So complicated. Luffy frowned, then his face lit up with joy. Got an idea. He took out a piece of black cloth and covered half of his face. Since you can't sneak in, let's rush in openly. Robin said, as long as I cover my face, the other person won't recognize me. Luffy threw the paintbrush into the paint bucket, and then held the handle of the bucket with his mouth. He stretched his hands forward fiercely, aiming at the Hokage's bedroom like a slingshot. He is now stronger than the second gear, and his speed is faster than CP9. The speed of shaving was even faster. Boom! An entire wall of Hokage's room seemed to be hit by a siege hammer and suddenly collapsed. Luffy turned over in the air and saw the old man named Hokage lying down. He was fast asleep on the bed, and he immediately picked up the paintbrush and painted his face a bright red. With a bang, Sarutobi Hiruzen disappeared on the bed. It was just a clone. Oops, I was deceived. What an interesting move. Luffy scratched his head and smiled. Catch him! The roar of Hiruzen Sarutobi came from outside the house. Luffy saw Hiruzen Sarutobi outside through the collapsed wall, wearing Hokage's clothes, standing behind two ANBU ninjas. He thought of the ninjas of Wano country. They also know this move, which seems to be called ninjutsu. The ANBU ninjas gathered outside the bedroom to prevent Luffy from escaping. Who are you? Who sent you? What is your purpose? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the paintbrush in Luffy's hand and thought, this time I finally found the culprit. My name is Luffy. He who sent me cannot tell you. The purpose is to paint you all over, he. Luffy said with a smile. Sure enough, there are relevant forces behind him. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Luffy carefully and saw that he was wearing a red vest, blue shorts, and an ordinary straw hat. His face was covered with black cloth, and there was no ninja forehead protector on his forehead. He really couldn't think of any ninja village that had such a talent. The purpose is to cover me with paint? Hey, poor excuse. Of course Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't believe in such a nonsensical purpose. How could a strong man of this strength act so nonsense? You can't run away, surrender, said an ANBU ninja standing at the front. Luffy said seriously, I'm sorry, I refuse to surrender. You are still pretending when death is imminent? Sarutobi Hiruzen's face darkened. Do it. The four ANBU ninjas standing at the front threw kunao together, and dozens of kunao were shot at Luffy. Luffy ignored the kunao shot at him, but squatted half-crouched. His feet were like it compressed like a spring, and then the whole body was ejected. The four ANBU ninjas felt their eyes dazzled, and the Straw Hat Boy just disappeared. The entire bedroom floor was trampled by Luffy, and the furniture in the room was completely destroyed. Pieces of the floorboards crashed to the first floor. The whole building felt like it had been hit by an earthquake. Before he could feel the pain of the furniture, Sarutobi felt a strong wind blowing across his face. His face was wet, and his nose smelled the familiar smell of paint again. At this time, the ANBU ninja in front of him was still looking around for the enemy. Luffy laughed and ran away, leaving a confused look on his face. Awesome ANBU ninja, and the third Hokage with a painted face. Waste. Why don't you go chase it quickly? The third Hokage smelled the paint on his body and became completely angry. Under the protection of a group of ANBU ninjas, he was painted with paint again. It was simply a shame and humiliation. For the first time, the ANBU ninjas saw the usually gentle third Hokage angry. Before the ANBU ninja could move, Luffy had already disappeared without a trace, and there was no trace of him. A bunch of trash. The third Hokage has completely broken his guard. It has been 3 days, and he has been covered in paint every day, but no one has been caught. Anyone else would have broken his guard. There was also a faint worry in his heart. The speed that the Straw Hat Boy showed just now is not average. Except for the dead Namikaze Minato, the only one in the ninja world who could match this speed was Reikage. He didn't see the other party using any ninjutsu or any seals, but he suddenly remembered that he could become a master just by relying on taijutsu. The 8 gates of armor defense? It doesn't look like that if you think about it. Why does this person come to paint me every day? A powerful enemy came in. The third Hokage decided to eliminate this hidden danger for the village. Go get Danzo. Chapter 8. Sarutobi Hiruzen was not willing to ask for help from Danzo for such a shameful matter. After all, Danzo had been waiting for him to make a mistake and then take his place. Danzo wanted to get involved in many ANBU matters, and in this situation, he probably wanted power legitimately. Asking others to help with this matter will only spread the embarrassing story to everyone. The Hokage can be defeated, but if the news spreads about being humiliated like this, he will lose his prestige. It's better to just go to Danzo directly. Although Sarutobi Hiruzen did not like to see Danzo, he could honestly say that dealing with such matters was Danzo's strength. When Danzo walked into the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi was enduring the pain of cleaning the paint off his beard one by one. He already knew the details of what happened in the past few days. Seeing Sarutobi Hiruzen deflated with his own eyes, he still couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha 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 ha! This is the first time Danzo, who can express his emotions and anger, smiles so happily. Hokage-sama, why don't you paint the wall yourself? The corners of Danzo's mouth were as hard to suppress as X, and he found a chair and sat down unceremoniously. Snort! Sarutobi Hiruzen snorted and waved his hand to keep the ANBU ninjas ambushing around away. Seeing that the ANBU ninjas were gone, Danzo continued. Hiruzen, when you get old, you should abdicate and take care of yourself. What's the point of occupying this Hokage position? Sarutobi Hiruzen slammed the table and said angrily, "Humph, the Root is an ANBU training institution for newcomers. Are you going to send this kind of talent to me? You are the ninjutsu professor, and you are the strongest in Konoha. You can't stop it yourself, so it's your subordinate's fault." Danzo immediately retorted. He had informants in the ANBU, and he had long known that Sarutobi Hiruzen had been painted in the past few nights. He wished there would be more of this kind of thing that weakened the Hokage's prestige. He continued. He mocked, "Hey, ninjutsu professor. What's the use of knowing so many ninjutsu? It looks like he is proficient in everything, but in fact he is weak in everything and useless. I shouldn't have called this pineapple head the fuck, I'm really asking for trouble." Sarutobi Hiruzen thought of MMP, and naturally he was not to be outdone when being ridiculed like this. Are you useless? What the hell do you specialize in? Specialize in poaching other people's eyeballs? At this point, Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at Danzo specifically. The Shisui's eye covered with a bandage. Danzo's expression changed slightly. It seemed that there were 3 generations of people in his family. It had only been 2 days since he got Shisui's eyes. How could an old boy like Sarutobi Hiruzen know about it? Although I definitely couldn't hide it, but I knew it too quickly, right? Seeing that Danzo was no longer as calm as before, Sarutobi Hiruzen was very satisfied with this precision strike. It was agreed at the beginning that you are the root and I am the leaf. You always want to turn them up from the soil and use them as leaves. Do you have the ability? Danzo's expression quickly recovered and he immediately retaliated. If you had the ability, you wouldn't let others act like a wall brush for 3 days in a row. Retire when you are old. Do you have to be the first person to die in the position of Hokage? Is there any world record that you need to break? My fucking psychic ape demon has come out. You will know if I am old or not if you try my golden cudgel. The two cursed each other for a while, but no one had the absolute upper hand. Sarutobi Hiruzen picked up the cigarette stick and filled a pot of tobacco leaves, lit it and took 2 puffs silently. The Hokage's office was suddenly filled with smoke. Danzo picked up the teacup next to him and took a big sip, his mouth dry from the quarrel. The air suddenly became quiet. Who? Danzo asked first. I don't know. Sarutobi Hiruzen blew out a cloud of white smoke and said solemnly. What does it look like? Have no idea. Is it male or female? Have no idea, probably a man, maybe. Sarutobi Hiruzen probably felt that it was not good to always say he didn't know, and he needed to make up for it. Waste. Danzo spit out the tea leaves in his mouth on the ground. Who are you talking about? Sarutobi Hiruzen raised his eyebrows and stood up sharply, preparing for the second scolding battle. Danzo said calmly, I'm talking about the ANBU people. Sarutobi Hiruzen sat back again. I heard a rumor today that your office is haunted. If not? Could it be that I couldn't stop someone from painting their body with paint for 3 days in a row? A person more powerful than the Hokage could come and go freely in the village and easily cause panic. Hearing this, Danzo nodded in agreement and said, yeah, but you can't hide it for long if it's haunted. Otherwise, why would I ask you to come? Sarutobi Hiruzen rolled his eyes and said. Damn, I'll wipe your ass every time. The anger of a tool man surged in Danzo's heart. Sarutobi Hiruzen moved his mouth but did not reply. As a flexible Hokage, he knew that he had to give the other party some face at this time. If the argument continues, it will be endless. It's almost dawn. What's the point of 2 grown men staying in the office all night? Seeing that Sarutobi Hiruzen was very sensible, Danzo relented and stopped teasing him. You wait in bed tomorrow night and leave the rest to me. Danzo said a word, got up and left. My building has collapsed, where can I sleep? After cleaning, you can sleep on the 1st floor. Without the 2nd floor, the house is transparent and comfortable to live in. Grass. Sarutobi Hiruzen cursed and knocked the cigarette rod in his hand on the ashtray on the table, which was regarded as acquiescing to this plan. Naruto was like a grudge woman who had been defrauded of her money, sitting on the balcony and staring blankly at the clean and new Hokage rock statue in the distance. His mood these days could best be described as ups and downs. Naruto suddenly grabbed his hair with both hands and shouted angrily, "Ah, I was cheated. How careless! I ate 32 bowls of ramen, even if I only applied Hokage rock once, it would be fine. That guy never does it once." Remembering Luffy's innocent and cheerful smile, Naruto collapsed even more. At that time, I still felt that others were innocent, but I was obviously very innocent. That guy named Luffy must be laughing at me loudly somewhere right now. It's all my fault. He said that he came from another world to take risks, and he could say such obviously deceptive words. I actually asked him for help. Iruka-sensei is right, a liar will not have the word liar written on his face. They always pretend to be more honest than decent people. Yo, Naruto! What are you doing? Naruto was lowering his head and grabbing his hair, and suddenly heard someone calling him next to him. Iruka-sensei! Teacher Mizuki! Naruto looked up and saw 2 teachers from the ninja school standing on the guardrail of his balcony. Iruka-sensei, you have to go through the door when entering someone else's house. Iruka jumped down from the guardrail of the balcony and said with a smile, we knocked on the door for a long time, but no one opened the door. I thought something had happened to you. I went around to the balcony to have a look. Why are you pulling your own hair? Naruto thought, he couldn't tell Iruka-sensei about hiring someone to play a prank and dirty the Hokage rock. He was severely punished by Iruka-sensei last time. What's more, he was deceived this time. It's too embarrassing. He thought about it and said, I haven't been able to learn the transformation skill well. I'm a little anxious. Just practice cooking more, there is no point in pulling your hair. Iruka said with a frown. Yes. Naruto agreed dejectedly. Iruka, you are too strict. Naruto just entered the ninja school this year. I believe that when Naruto graduates, he will be able to learn all the basic ninjutsu well and graduate successfully. Mizuki said with a smile and a kind look on his face. Naruto, these things are brought to you. Mizuki put a carton of milk on the table. I heard that you haven't gone out to eat ramen recently and have been eating instant noodles at home. Children still need to eat something nutritious. Naruto saw the milk and thanked him happily. Thank you, Mr. Mizuki. This box of milk was purchased by Irika and Mizuki. Mizuki happily accepted Naruto's thanks to him. He glanced at Irika with a serious expression from the corner of his eye and did not explain. Looking at this box of milk, Naruto felt his wounded heart felt better. When the milk was delivered, Irika saw that Naruto was okay, so he asked Mizuki to leave together. When they walked to the door, Irika turned to Naruto and said, I must stay here these nights. Stay at home and don't go out. Irika-sensei is so busy. Naruto complained softly. Mizuki explained it's not a big deal. Someone over at the Hokage's office came with news that there has been a lot of hauntings at night lately, so be careful. Oh, hey. Chapter 9. Are there really ghosts in this world? Naruto felt a little scared when he heard the always serious teacher Irika say this. Mizuki laughed and said, Irika, stop scaring the children. There are ghosts in this world. Irika frowned and said nothing. Mizuki continued, there should be enemies who are playing tricks in the dark. Once Naruto heard that it was a human being and not a ghost, he immediately lost his fear and asked excitedly, are there any enemies invading the village? The Anbu have been struggling for several days but haven't caught anyone, so please stop causing trouble. Irika's expression changed and he stopped him. Mizuki. Oh, haha, I am too talkative. Mizuki smiled apologetically, and then left with Irika. An enemy that even Anbu cannot defeat. If I solve it, can I become Hokage? Everyone in the village should praise me, right? Naruto thought excitedly when he saw the two teachers leaving. Naruto turned his head and found an envelope next to the carton of milk. Hey, what is this? When I opened it, there were 3 banknotes inside, a total of 300 taels. 1 tael equals 10 yuan, the original setting of Naruto. Teacher Mizuki must have secretly placed this. Mizuki-sensei is really kind to me, not as cruel as Irika-sensei at all. Naruto was overjoyed as he took the envelope. Every month, the 3rd Hokage would give Naruto a sum of money to use in his daily life. It wouldn't be a lot of money, just enough for food and clothing. Of course, all the money would come from Minato Namikaze and his wife. Since he bought Luffy 32 bowls of noodles, Naruto not only has no money to eat ramen this month, but also has difficulty eating instant noodles. Now that Mr. Mizuki has sent him a sum of money, he can eat his beloved noodles again. Naruto rushed out happily. Luffy was holding a large piece of meat and was chewing on it. Next to him sat a young man with the Uchiha clan emblem printed on his back. The boy's 2 eyeballs had gone somewhere, leaving only 2 deep blood holes, which was a bit scary. This boy was Uchiha Shisui, who committed suicide by jumping off a cliff 2 days ago after being robbed of one eye by Danzo in a sneak attack. He then gave the other eye to his friend Uchiha Itachi. However, after jumping off the cliff, he fell into the Nanga River below and was rescued by Luffy, who was having a barbecue on the shore. After what he experienced, he didn't want to go back to Anbu, nor to the Uchiha clan. After dying once, Shisui had been lying in a cave by the Nanga River for the past 2 days to recuperate. He had already felt as good as Shisui. I just want peace in the village, why is it so difficult? After experiencing life and death, Shisui was a little discouraged. Luffy had just piled firewood and wanted to light a barbecue. Hearing Shisui say this, he asked, so, you commit suicide to achieve peace? Zisui's mouth twitched, but he hesitated to speak. Luffy piled the firewood he found high and said to Shisui excitedly, use magic to light a bonfire for me. He eats 8 meals a day, and it feels uncomfortable even if he misses one. He is either grilling meat or eating meat. Almost all the beasts around here have been eaten. Shisui formed a seal very skillfully. Fire release, the technique of the big fireball. The fireball the size of a basketball flew towards the firewood pile and ignited the large pile of firewood. The force was controlled just right, and the firewood pile did not move at all when hit by the big fireball. Only the firewood was ignited. Wow! Luffy's eyes started to shine again. Your magic is awesome. Magician, please join my pirate team. Ji Shui didn't speak and continued to sit quietly. After Luffy rescued Shi Shui, he roughly understood the whole story of Shi Shui's suicide in the past 2 days. Understanding is understanding, and he didn't understand why someone would commit suicide. In Luffy's dictionary the word suicide does not exist here. As long as he lives, he can solve all problems. The conflict between the village and the tribe is getting bigger and bigger, and I am caught in the middle. My eyes were snatched away, my last hope for peace was shattered, and death was my best destination. You shouldn't have saved me. Ji Shui sighed and said. You should fight like a man. Kill the guy named Danzo and get the eyes back. Luffy picked up a skewer of meat and ate it. Shisui said calmly, many things cannot be solved by killing people. Danzo is a high-ranking official in Konoha. If he is killed, the two sides will completely break up and there will be no room for turning around. I entrusted my other eye to my best friend. I believe he can lead his people to peace. Luffy chewed the meat and said vaguely, ugh, you are such a boring mother-in-law. It is most refreshing to solve the problem the pirate way. Zisui's calm face showed a trace of surprise. Pirate's way? Luffy waved his fist and said, whoever wins will listen to whoever wins. Zisui suddenly remembered what he said after being rescued by Luffy 2 days ago. Luffy seemed to say that he came from another world. What kind of pirate king is he? Shisui has never heard of the title Pirate King, of course not. It's easy to believe. When Luffy saw that Shisui's eyeball was gone, he instructed him to practice the Haki of Wisdom. Shisui had never heard of this strange ability, nor had he been exposed to this strange way of training. Uchiha's genius, who practiced with suspicion, actually quickly mastered the basic usage. After only 2 days, he could already faintly sense the movements of flowers, birds, insects, fish, flowing water, and breeze around him, and he suddenly felt uncomfortable after being blind. Reduced a lot. After mastering this ability, it is not just as simple as helping a blind man find his way. It should improve combat reflexes. Shisui is indeed a genius ninja. He immediately saw the true value of seeing and hearing. Maybe he is really the overlord of the party. Ask him to come forward, maybe he can persuade the famous people to solve the gap between the village and the tribe. But after all, this matter has nothing to do with him, so he rashly asked for help. Shisui could hear Luffy eating meat, but he was hesitating in his heart whether to speak or not. Shisui always hoped to solve the problem in a peaceful way. After finishing all the barbecue, Luffy stood up with satisfaction. He picked up the paint bucket on the ground and left. I'm leaving. I'll see you again tomorrow. Luffy walked a few steps and then turned around and said, don't commit suicide again. Ji Shui suddenly asked, how many days are left for your mission? He knew that Luffy had to leave every night to do missions these days. Out of the professionalism of a ninja, he did not ask Luffy what specific mission he was doing. Luffy scratched his head and said, there are about 3 days left. Bar. What about 3 days later? Are you leaving here? Yes. There's nothing fun here, so I'm leaving. Luffy thought for a moment and said, ah, right. I have my eye on a chef and I must make him a partner before leaving. Zisui was stunned. Chef? Do you still need a chef in your ninja team? Zisui also thinks that the pirate group that Luffy mentioned is just another name for the ninja team. Of course the pirate team needs a chef. I'd also like to find a musician for the banquet. Shisui. Do you want to join? It would be nice to have a magician at the party, but you are homeless now anyway. Luffy asked casually. Forget it. If a loser like me joins the team, I won't be able to help, and will only become a burden. Zisui said with some frustration. Luffy said seriously, even if some companions are not strong, they are the people I always want to be with. As long as I become stronger than anyone else, I will never lose them. Zisui thought of the scene where Danzo took away his eyes, and couldn't help but feel something in his heart. As long as you are strong enough, can you protect everyone? He just sat quietly by the Nanhi River, listening to the chirping of birds and insects in his ears. Shisui has nothing now, but feels extremely at ease. Uchiha Itachi went home today. Brother, will you practice ninjutsu with me? Looking at his brother's back, Sasuke smiled and asked hopefully. Sorry, Sasuke, maybe next time. Uchiha Itachi tapped Sasuke's forehead with his finger and said apologetically. Sasuke has heard this sentence many times. Before, he would beg his brother again, but this time his smile froze on his face and he stared blankly. He turned around and left. His brother's expression looked the same as usual, but Sasuke saw a strong sadness underneath his calm face. Chapter 10. Two adults, everything has been arranged. Shanfeng came over and reported to Danzo. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, stood beside him silently watching Danzo's arrangements, and couldn't help but ask, are you so sure that he will come again? Danzo glanced around and showed a satisfied smile. That man is very confident. How can you see it? Although I don't know what his purpose is yet, his purpose has definitely not been achieved. He smeared paint on you every time he came but did nothing else. Even though he knew there was an ambush, he still came, which meant that there were more important things to do. It's not like his purpose is to apply paint on you, right? How could such a master do such a prank? Besides, you didn't leave him alone last time, or even cause him any harm. He now despises you, the Hokage, in his heart. Will definitely come again. Sarutobi Hiruzen snorted, and he still agreed with Danzo's analysis in his heart, but he was still dissatisfied. I think you are too confident in yourself. Danzo waved his hand and said, my arrangement is foolproof. Sarutobi Hiruzen faced off against the attackers and lost 3 of the 3 battles. He really had nothing to brag about in front of Danzo. As a Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen is well versed in the essence of chatting. Being unreasonable on one matter, then change the topic and defeat you on another matter. So Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly said seriously, how are you handling the matter about the Uchiha clan? Danzo was stunned, and waved Shanfeng and others to move away. Rebellion confirmed. The best way to deal with this is to wipe out all the Uchiha clan. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked solemn. Eradicate them all. No one left. Who do you want to keep? At least women and children. Hey, don't do this in front of me. Danzo crossed his arms and looked forward, with a proud look on his face. Our goals are the same. All hidden dangers that could lead to unrest in the village must be eliminated. What's more, the Uchiha clan is no longer a hidden danger, but a serious disease that is about to break out. So you killed Shisui? To make them rebel more completely. Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at Danzo's bandaged eye. One of Danzo's eyes suddenly shone brightly. Shisui actually wants to use the pupil technique of other gods to prevent the Uchiha clan from rebelling. Once his plan succeeds and the Uchiha clan compromises, the top management of the Fire Country will no longer support the plan to completely annihilate the Uchiha clan. I can only find an opportunity to kill him before he goes back. Otherwise, the hidden danger of Uchiha will always exist. Is this really the case? Thought you wanted Shisui's Sharingan. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. The Sharingan just happened. If you kill but don't take it, isn't it a waste? Sarutobi Hiruzen said with some worry. There has never been a complete annihilation of the entire ninja family among the 5 great ninja villages. Will doing this affect Konoha's image? Danzo paused for a moment and said, I will arrange for Uchiha Itachi, the young genius of the Uchiha clan, to personally annihilate the Uchiha clan. Rumor has it that the Uchiha clan is killing each other, and it has nothing to do with Konoha. That's good. Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded assuredly. You are born to engage in conspiracy behind the scenes. Naruto needs to compromise, and you can't do it. Danzo laughed a few times and said, compromise? How can we run a good village with these rubbish? All he thinks about is compromise, but he actually says it's for peace. Is peace the result of compromise? Those bullshit officials from the Fire Nation. Shut up. Sarutobi Hiruzen's face changed slightly, and he stopped Danzo from continuing. I just complimented you a few words, and then you showed your true colors. If you are the Hokage with a personality like this, the Fire Nation's funds for Konoha will be cut off the next day. Okay, I won't talk to you that much. Again, if you have the means to get me down, then you will be the Hokage. I have no opinion. The two often clashed over the direction of the village's governance, which is why Danzo increasingly wanted to be Hokage himself. Obviously, Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't want to continue such a nutritious topic. Let's talk about your current arrangement. Danzo knew that the two of them were wasting their time talking and couldn't come up with anything practical. Although the two had different ideas, they were both for Konoha. Judging from the information obtained in the past 3 days, the human body technique is very powerful. And he has secret skills such as extending his arms and legs. There is also a ninja who specializes in physical arts in our village. Think about who Metkai often loses to in competitions. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought of the green jarhead Kakashi. Danzo nodded and said, Kakashi won't win head-on against him. Taijutsu ninjas often lose to ninjas who are good at controlling ninjutsu. The one-on-one situation is better, but the disadvantage is especially obvious when fighting in a team. Ordinary ninjas are not as fast as Taijutsu ninjas. So I brought in Nara Suzaku from the Nara clan, who is good at shadow imitation. Shanfeng is good at the art of mind turning. The oil girl takes the root and is full of poisonous insects that are hard to guard against. There is also the experimental body armor that is fused with the first generation cells. They are all good at control-type ninjutsu. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression changed. Experimental body armor, is it Orochimaru's experimental subject who can use wood release? Not familiar with it yet. Danzo said calmly. If you don't know him well, why would you ask him to do it? Basic wood escape is okay, trapping people is no problem. Let him report to ANBU tomorrow. Your uncle, you have snatched away all the good seedlings at their roots. Danzo couldn't help but cursed. Read the full name of the root yourself. Sarutobi Hiruzen said with some pride. ANBU Training Department is Gen's official name. He has been so anxious these past few days that he can't hold his head up in front of Danzo. This seems to have turned the tables slightly, and Sarutobi Hiruzen feels secretly happy. Several ANBU jounin have already found the best ambush position, which is the position where you can best use your ninjutsu advantage. Nara Suzaku's best ninjutsu is the shadow imitation technique, which has been perfectly integrated into the shadow of the house. The mountain breeze is on the second floor opposite, and the window is facing it. In the Hokage's bedroom, you can use the heart-turning technique at any time. The poisonous insects that Aberame took the root of are already filled with the experimental body armor of Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is the teacher of Class 7 after Kakashi. Yamato. He was also perfectly integrated with the environment and could take action at any time. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at his bedroom and then at the setting sun. He couldn't help but feel safe when he thought about sleeping in a place like this at night. Call. A strong wind blew. They both narrowed their eyes at the same time. A figure flashed past the two of them. The speed was so fast that the two ninjas with cage-level strength were stunned and did not react. Accompanied by a series of awu awu, the wild screams have gone away. What kind of monster is that? Just Danzo watched Luffy's retreating figure, and after a while he turned to Sarutobi Hiruzen beside him. His words stopped suddenly, his pupils suddenly dilated, and his face was filled with a shocked expression. Sarutobi Hiruzen reached out and touched his face, then spread his palm towards Danzo. The palm of his hand revealed a bright red color. Sarutobi Hiruzen sneered and said, "Is this what you call foolproof?" Looking at the red paint that suddenly appeared on the face of the third Hokage, the Jonin lying in wait said. Although his face was smeared with red paint just like the previous 3 days, Sarutobi Hiruzen was still a little happy when he saw Danzo deflated. Why? At this time, there was no need for Sarutobi Hiruzen to explain too much. Danzo could already smell the pungent smell of paint. Was that the person just now? The shocked expression on Danzo's face has not faded yet. It's him. Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded. This speed is comparable to the Flying Thunder God. Where did such a master come from? Danzo frowned. Chapter 11. Grandpa Hokage. When Danzo was thinking about how to catch Luffy, a childish voice sounded. Oh? It's Naruto. Sarutobi Hiruzen greeted Naruto kindly. He overheard the news from Mizuki that someone was invading Konoha. Naruto didn't even eat ramen, so he immediately came here to watch the fun. You are? He immediately saw the red paint on the third Hokage's face. It was obviously impossible for the third Hokage to apply this paint on his face. But, who dares to put paint on Naruto's face? He actually used the same red paint as himself. Seeing the red paint, Naruto thought of the Straw Hat Boy who ate his 32 bowls of ramen. His heart ached at the thought of wasting 32 bowls of ramen. In the blink of an eye, I saw the red paint on Naruto's face, and I didn't know why, but I felt a lot more comfortable. Danzo inserted his hands into his sleeves and just stood aside, glancing at Naruto with the corner of his eye. Naruto shuddered when Danzo glanced at him. The look in the eyes of this one-eyed pineapple head always made Naruto feel nervous every time he met him. Seeing that there was nothing exciting to see, Naruto laughed, turned around and left. Naruto. The third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen opened his mouth and stopped Naruto. Ah? What's up? Naruto turned around and looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with doubtful eyes. Forward. Naruto often got into trouble, and Hiruzen Sarutobi would give him a lesson every time he saw him. After subconsciously stopping Naruto this time, after thinking about it, it seemed that Naruto had been quite honest these days and had not caused any trouble. For a moment, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't think of any lessons to teach him, so he could only say, "You haven't been messing around lately, that's good." Naruto scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. He thought to himself originally, I was going to the Hokage Rock to paint. However, a third-generation old man had his face painted with paint, so what's the point of painting on the Hokage Rock? Let's go eat ramen. Pinching the frog wallet in his pocket, Naruto's depression in the past few days was gone. Looking at Naruto's leaving figure, Danzo said calmly, "When do you plan to develop the Nine Tails Jinhyuri Ki?" Sarutobi Hiruzen said impatiently, "Didn't I tell you that the key is in Jiraiya's hand? We can only wait until he comes back." Hey, other villages have already conducted rigorous training for Jinchuri Ki. For example, Gaara, the one-tailed Jinhyuri Ki of the Land of Wind, is about the same age as Naruto and can already skillfully use the tailed beast chakra to fight. We in Konoha are still in a state of herding sheep. The reason why the village's strength has declined so drastically is because you, the Hokage, have been too lax. Danzo said dissatisfied. I have already said that Jiraiya, who has experience in training Jinhyuri Ki, is not here. Who else can train him? If the Kyuubi Jinhyuri Ki goes berserk and attacks again, the village will be gone. Who will be responsible then? Sarutobi Hiruzen retorted. You can leave it to me for root training. The Gyuui would release ninjutsu, can limit the Nine Tails chakra and guarantee results within 1 year. When the time comes, the ANBU will send you a ninja with cage level strength. You fucking have to wait for someone who can't even be found and knows how to spy on the emperor's uncle every day to train. Didn't you often say that the village would move on without anyone missing, so why did he have to do it now? Danzo became more and more dissatisfied when he heard what Sarutobi Hiruzen said. You saw it? Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly asked. What? Danzo was startled, then a trace of discomfort flashed across his face, and he hurriedly denied I didn't look. If you haven't read it, how do you know the content? Sarutobi Hiruzen had a weird smile on his face. I want to see what Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sunin, does every day. Danzo said with disdain, I didn't expect to be so unprofessional. How long will it take for him to train Kyuubi? No hurries? There is no war now. Sarutobi Hiruzen became a little angry when he saw that Danzo kept insisting on this issue. If the Uchiha clan is destroyed, the village's combat power will drop. There is a ready-made Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, but you can't make good use of it. Then don't destroy them first. When there is a war, let them consume them. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought for a while and said. No, it will change if it is too late. With Shisui dead, they would definitely be tempted to take action, and the village would suffer even greater losses if it continued. Danzo rejected Sarutobi Hiruzen's proposal. Konoha was now like a patient in need of surgery. Surgery can be debilitating for a while, but you will recover. If this operation is not performed, the body will slowly die. Danzo looked firmly at the horizon, where the blood-red setting Sunday. Nanga Riverside. Mr. Celebrity Chef. Join my pirate team. Luffy was eating barbecue and began to invite Uchiha Bamboo to join him. In just 2 days, the two were now very familiar with each other. Luffy caught all kinds of wild beasts, and Uchiha Bamboo cooked them in various ways. Here on the side of the Nanga River, they were meeting friends with meat and enjoying themselves. Uchiha Take didn't refute Luffy's words as usual, but just stared at the water of the Nanga River in a daze. He didn't talk anymore, but ate meat on the side. Last night, Uchiha Takeru was squatting in the corner with a small notebook, listening to his parents chat, and collecting intelligence as usual. A conversation that shocked him. Shisui is dead. My mother's surprised voice came through the wall. Yes, Itaka brought back the news of Shisui's death and a suicide note. My father said in a slightly tired voice. A suicide note? What was written? I'm tired of missions. If this continues, the Uchiha clan will have no future, so I don't want to continue like this. This is, what's the meaning? Have no idea. Who killed Shisui? Suicide. Suicide. How can it be? My mother said in a surprised voice. That's what Itaka said. Itaka? Is this his one-sided statement? He went to ANBU when he was very young and was trained by ANBU. He has no sense of identification with Uchiha at all. Is he still considered a member of our Uchiha Patriarch? After confirming the news of Shisui's suicide, Uchiha Takeru could no longer hear any sound in his ears. His mouth opened slightly and the notebook in his hand fell to the ground. It wasn't until his father snored for a long time that he came back to his senses and tears flowed down his chubby cheeks. Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi are both geniuses of the Uchiha clan. The two have completely opposite personalities, one is cold and the other is sunny. Uchiha Take is not very talented and is fat. Although he has a good relationship with Sasuke, other than that, his peers either laugh at him or stay away from him. But as a genius, brother Shisui often greeted him with a smile and enthusiastically trained ninjutsu with him. Not only for Uchiha Take, Shisui was very enthusiastic towards everyone. Such behavior is enough to leave an impression on Uchiha Take's young mind. For Uchiha Take who doesn't understand ANBU, ANBU is a mysterious department where there are many difficult tasks that need to be completed. To do the mission, you need information. Uchiha Take secretly thought in terms of ninjutsu, I will never be able to catch up with brother Shisui in this life. But I will work hard to learn how to collect information and become brother Zisui's right-hand man. Unexpectedly, brother Zisui, whom he has always admired, actually died like that. And his death was unclear. What did mother mean just now, that brother Shisui might be killed by Itaki? Why would the same Uchiha genius do this? I must investigate this matter clearly. Bamboo, your grilled meat is so delicious. Do you really not want to consider joining my pirate group? Luffy's voice came to Uchiha Take's ears. Uchiha Take said with firm eyes, "Thank you for the invitation. My dream is not to be a pirate." Chapter 12. Usually when Luffy opened his invitation, Uchiha Take would refuse casually, but there was no such formal refusal. Luffy was stunned for a moment, then grinned. "Really, I understand." He stood up and stretched towards the rising moon in the sky. Gone. Uchiha Takeru was stunned for a moment, but Luffy had already left. Getting along with Luffy, laughing and joking every day, was very pleasant. A foodie appeared out of nowhere, eating more than himself, but not getting fat. Said to be honest, Uchiha Take is a little envious of Luffy's physique. Let's go. Anyway, he comes over to eat the barbecue made by Uchiha Take at this time every day. Uchiha Take is probably not paying attention, but is thinking how to investigate the cause of death of brother Shisui. Facing an enemy they had never seen before and a fighting method they had never seen before, Danzo and Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at each other in shock. Others would hide their figures and sneak attacks, sneak past quietly, and then take action suddenly at the right moment. The attacker rushed over at extremely high speed and struck fiercely. People can see it, but they can't react. If he maintained this speed during the battle, then few ninjas in Konoha would be able to defeat him in a head-to-head duel. If Danzo really faced off head-on, he would have the confidence to use ninjutsu to restrain such a speedy ninja. But the opponent has always been like this, hit and run, not willing to fight at all. And apart from taijutsu, no ninjutsu was used. This left Sarutobi Hiruzen, a ninjutsu professor, at his wit's end, unable to determine the opponent's identity. "It's all on you." Sarutobi Hiruzen rubbed the paint on his hands and said to Danzo. This trouble was finally handed over to Danzo. Sarutobi Hiruzen was actually feeling a little bit relaxed now. Even the four known as Yellow Flashes, the Dai Hokage, Namikaze Minato, only used the teleportation technique at the right time in battle to catch the enemy by surprise. He had never seen anyone activate the teleportation technique outside the Jounin's warning range and charge at high speed. And then ran away again. This guy is quite confident in his speed. Danzo sneered, "If you want to maintain such a high speed, there must be side effects. He comes to attack every day and must still be near Konoha." Danzo made a gesture, and all the ninjas who were ambushing around came to him. "How about it?" This sentence was asked to Abarame Takani. No matter how fast the enemy is, as long as it is not flying in the air, it will always leave some traces of smell. When Luffy flashed past, Abarame Takani had already been released. Tracking bug to track Luffy's scent. What's more, the opponent is carrying something as irritating as a paint bucket, which is very easy to track. Abarame took the route and nodded and said, "Sir, we have tracked it." "Very good." Danzo glanced at Sarutobi Hiruzen and praised him. Sarutobi Hiruzen twitched the corners of his mouth and said nothing. When he was first painted with paint, he thought it was just a prank. Later, he felt that he only needed to act casually to deal with this. When he became more serious every time, and finally tried his best but couldn't catch the other party, he felt that something was wrong. It had been 3 days. It would be too embarrassing to ask someone to help. He and Danzo are classmates and colleagues, and they are very familiar with each other's strength. Anyway, the Hokage who is teased by Danzo every day has no courage, so he just asks Danzo for help. He is also curious about who is following him. Is he playing a prank? And it's probably not a prank. There must be some conspiracy behind it. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought hard and couldn't figure out the reason. Danzo looked at the 4 Jounin in front of him, Narasozaku, Yama-phase, Aberamataktion, and the experimental body armor that was fused with the first-generation cells to be able to use would release, which was Yamato who later replaced Kakashi as the teacher of Class 7. Coupled with himself and Hiruzen Sarutobi, this lineup can be called luxurious. It should be no problem to chase and arrest someone. Let's go and see it together. Danzo said to Sarutobi Hiruzen. Puff. Puff puff. Luffy vomited blood as he ran. Ha ha, phew, ha, puff puff, so dangerous, so dangerous. Those guys look pretty strong, so it might be a bit troublesome not to use second gear. Luffy laughed while holding the paint bucket. It only took a few years from the time he went to sea at the age of 17 to becoming the Pirate King. Overclocking used the fruit's ability to overwhelm his body, which was so serious that even Chopper couldn't cure it and could only barely survive. Luffy himself didn't care, he was still laughing and joking all day long. Along the way, until he became the Pirate King, it feels good to have friends together. Everyone's dreams have come true. Will you continue to travel around the world and find the One Piece? It's heartless, but Luffy, as the captain, knows best what his friends are thinking. Zoro wants to return to Shiya village most, because Kuina is quietly waiting for the return of the world's best swordsman. Nami. What Usopp most wanted to go back to was Coco West village, where her sister and villagers loved her, and she wanted to take another bite of oranges from the orange orchard. Usopp wanted to go back to West Rob village, where her childhood sweetheart, Kaya, was standing at the window, looking gentle. Smiling, listening to his bragging. Sanji most wanted to go back to the sea restaurant Barity, where the boss Jeep was like an old father, and the rude cooks. Chopper wanted to go back to Drum Island the most. Talking about his achievements at the grave. Frank most wanted to return to the capital of Seven Waters, where his elder brother Iceberg was waiting for him, and to revive the teacher's shipbuilding craft. Robin found all the historical texts, and she wanted to return to O'Hara the most. Her hometown is also the archaeological holy place she most wants to rebuild. Jinbei wants to return to Fishman Island, where he has fought for equal rights for the fish people. Well, with eternal life, he probably doesn't even know what he will do in the future. Luffy definitely didn't want to drag down his friends because of his illness, and he didn't want to lie on the hospital bed looking like he was dying. Roger chose to use his own life to start the Age of Discovery. Luffy didn't have such a great goal, and becoming the Pirate King was just a slogan he shouted on a whim. He is adventurous at heart. We had a grand adventure at sea, but we couldn't give up on our dream just because we were about to die. If you can die for your dreams, isn't that a kind of happiness? Therefore, he disbanded the pirate group and started a new adventure alone. My friends have fulfilled their dreams and should all have returned to their hometowns. Thinking of this, Luffy felt happy for his friends and laughed happily. Ha ha ha, poof. Luffy smiled and spit out another mouthful of old blood. It seems that we need to find some meat to eat to replenish the lost blood. Hey! There is the aroma of barbecue. Luffy suddenly smelled the aroma of barbecue, and couldn't help but run towards the source of the aroma. Chapter 13. Shisui. It turns out you are grilling meat. Luffy found the source of the meat smell and found that it was Uchiha Shisui grilling meat. The meat skewers in Uchiha Shisui's hand were sizzling with oil and fragrant. Hey, this barbecue method looks a bit familiar. Luffy found that Uchiha Shisui's way of grilling meat looked familiar. He couldn't remember other things, but Luffy had a photographic memory of what he ate. Uchiha Shisui smiled and handed the grilled meat skewers to LUFFYS. Asked, by the way, this is my original way of barbecue. Have you seen it elsewhere? Luffy took the meat skewers and ate it hastily. He had already forgotten Uchiha Shisui's problem. Of course, Uchiha Shisui did not delve into such a small problem. After a while, Luffy, after finishing all the meat skewers, he touched his belly and said, "Oops, finally alive again, ha ha ha." This meat made up for the damage caused by Luffy vomiting blood just now. Luffy burped, and then he had time to speak. Not bad, can you catch wild beasts? You have seen that the cultivation of sabaki is progressing very quickly. It's faster than when I was practicing the haki of knowledge and color. Zisui shook his head modestly and said, maybe it's because I'm blind. There is no external interference, but it is more suitable for the practice of seeing, hearing, color and domineering. Thank you, Luffy. Shisui sincerely thanked him. Uchiha Shisui has been helping others since he was a child. As an Uchiha genius, he basically does not need help from others. Until Luffy saved his life and taught him so much. Uchiha Shisui always felt guilty if he didn't do something for the other party. From Luffy's chat yesterday, he overheard that he liked to eat barbecue. Today, Uchiha Shisui worked hard, hunting a wild boar. In the process of catching the wild boar, Uchiha Shisui also discovered that the more he used the haki, the more proficient he became. Shisui found that after he got used to it, it was much easier to use than his eyes. This made Uchiha Shisui feel even more regretful. He cut down trees to make wooden sticks, skinned, cleaned, cut and other operations on the wild boar, and finally finished the barbecue. If Luffy was nearby, he would be able to recognize this set. The method of making barbecue is exactly the same as that of Uchiha Bamboo. Uchiha Bamboo was too lazy and didn't learn any powerful ninjutsu from Shunshen Shisui. He only learned how to make barbecue. So he obviously couldn't repay his life-saving grace. This is the only thing Uchiha Shisui can do for Luffy at this stage. Shisui sat quietly, listening to the sound of Luffy chewing meat with a smile, and felt very satisfied. Did something go wrong with today's mission? When Luffy finished eating all the barbecue, Shisui asked. He smelled the smell of blood on Luffy's body. Ah? Task? Oh. Luffy was stunned for a moment, fell back on the grass and said, it's absolutely no problem. If you run into trouble on a mission, maybe I can help with some advice. Although Shisui has not fought against Luffy, based on the contacts in the past few days, Luffy is not a ninja although he is not weak. He was fine in the previous missions, but he was actually injured this time. Now that he has come to his professional realm, Shisui couldn't hold it back anymore, so he tactfully reminded him. Just put paint on Naruto's body, no difficulty at all. Luffy put his hands on the back of his head and said casually while looking at the sky. However, if you talk about the mission of a ninja, it sounds interesting. Next time etc. Who do you want to paint on? Zisui interrupted Luffy abruptly and asked nervously. Naruto. He is a thin old man with a grey beard. Luffy was afraid that Shisui didn't know Naruto, so he explained. Apply paint. Oh, yes. Nothing else. What else needs to be done? The task is to apply paint all over him. That's so interesting, haha. Luffy couldn't help but laugh when he thought of Hiruzen Sarutobi's face with red paint. Uchiha Shisui was silent. It turns out that Luffy has been keeping the paint bucket in his hand these days and leaves regularly. Is he going to paint the Hokage? This what operation? Shisui didn't understand, but he was shocked. Is there any profound meaning in doing this? He still wants to try to understand the reason why Luffy did this. If he doesn't understand the reason, he can't give reasonable suggestions. Is it difficult to understand that if you eat other people's food, you have to do other people's favors? However, it ends in 2 days. Luffy said excitedly while lying on the grass, looking at the sky. After it's over, I'm leaving here. Do you want to join my pirate group and come with me? Zisui did not answer Luffy's question, but said in surprise, in other words, in the next 2 days, you will have to paint the Hokage-sama. Yes. Luffy looked as if he should take it for granted. You said the mission was for a week, it has already taken 4 days, and there are still 2 more days to go. Isn't 4 plus 2 6? But there are 7 days in a week. Ah, so there are 7 days in a week? Then let's go for 3 more days. Luffy suddenly realized. Yuhi, Shisui was speechless for a moment, things were so bizarre that he didn't know what to say. If someone else said that, Shisui would definitely think he was lying. After these few days of contact, Shisui discovered that Luffy had a carefree personality, but he was magnanimous and had never told a lie. I went to paint the Hokage for several days in a row, nothing happened, and I can still come back and eat barbecue every day? Could it be that you smeared the paint on someone else? As a member of the Anbu, Shisui knew the strength of the third Hokage very well. After asking a few questions, Shisui confirmed that what Luffy said was actually true. In the past few days, the third Hokage has been painted by him every day. I'm not in the ANBU. Are the guards around Hokage already so stretched? Being able to master the secret technique knowing color haki, Luffy's strength should not be underestimated. However, the third Hokage is a ninjutsu professor and is recognized as the strongest in the village. He won't be able to defeat him for 4 days in a row, right? What's more, there are ANBU ninjas protecting Naruto. If someone were to assassinate someone, the consequences would be disastrous. Don't worry. When you become proficient in seeing and hearing haki, your perceptual abilities will be far beyond what you could see before, and your combat strength will also be enhanced. Want to take revenge on the person who took away your eyes? Luffy asked strangely when he saw that Shisui's face was solemn and he was mumbling to himself. Ah? No. I have already said that Danzo is a high-ranking official in Konoha, and dealing with him will only cause chaos in the village. We just have different ideas about peace and there is nothing to take revenge on. Shisui explained. For many years in Anbu, the word Shisui heard most was overall situation. He was taught to think about the overall situation of Konoha, and he usually did the same. When Danzo took away his Manjiki Sharingan as he watched, Shisui thought to himself that this was a sacrifice for the peace of the village. This was the will of fire. Wherever the leaves flew, fire continued to grow. Since he had become a useless waste, he might as well become a useless person. Nutrition. Therefore, Shisui gave Taka the other eye, and did not ask him to seek revenge from Danzo, but told him to protect Konoha village. Since I can't find a way for my family and the village to coexist, Itaki is a genius beyond me. He must be able to find a better way. Whether Uchiha destroys Konoha or Konoha destroys Uchiha, this is not the ending I want. I want everyone to get along well, but I really can't do it. Ji Shui thought of this, covering his head in pain, kneeling on the ground and growling. Chapter 14. A bear maze tracking bug easily found Luffy. Luffy had never thought about hiding his whereabouts, nor did he know how to hide, and he didn't know any anti-tracking skills. A bear maze extraction suddenly stopped. After a few minutes, an inconspicuous little bug landed on his finger. Aberame took the root and put the insect back into her body, and said to Danzo, "Sir." The target stopped in front. Everyone looked forward. It was already dark. In the forest in the distance, there was actually a flicker of fire. Shanfeng snorted and said, "What a poor performance. Which ninja would suddenly stop to light a fire while escaping? This kind of clumsy little trap is okay against genin. We have 2 cage-level ninjas and 4 jounin here. This combination is enough to destroy a small country. Will I still be fooled like you? Sir, there is another person beside the target." Them, Aberame took root and continued. "They seem to be barbecuing." Barbecue. The ninjas, including Sarutobi Hiruzen, were stunned. They have never been in. I have seen this happen when attacking enemies. The enemy was halfway running and suddenly stopped to barbecue? This is as casual as a child. It's totally against common sense. Sarutobi Hiruzen followed Danzo silently, without speaking, as if he was an outsider. Abarame took root and only reported the situation to Danzo. I don't know much about Genbi's ninja strength. Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at Danzo. Over the years since the establishment of the roots, Danzo has been solely responsible for everything. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Hokage, could not interfere. Danzo stared at the light of the bonfire in the distance and said calmly, "Go and see who it is. Catch if you can, kill if you can." Sarutobi Hiruzen looked stern and looked at Danzo seriously. After Danzo paused for a few seconds, he said, "Master Hokage and I are supporting you from behind." Abarame took the root as the leader, and the 4 root jounin saluted Danzo together, then suddenly dispersed and quickly disappeared into the woods. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Danzo standing quietly with his hands in his sleeves, and his eyes reflected the bonfire danced in the distance. Danzo thought that the opponent relied on surprise and speed to attack, and the 4 ambush nins had not yet been in position, so they succeeded in painting Sarutobi Hiruzen's face. Now, the offense and defense were changing. In the dark, the other party is in the light. It should be enough to send 4 jounin to arrest people, right? Painting Naruto's body is not a big unrest. It is Uchiha who really brings unrest to the village. This is something that the teacher, Senju Tobirama, has been worrying about all his life. I must fulfill the teacher's last wish and completely eliminate the Uchiha, the biggest factor of instability. Danzo's face flashed with fierceness, and then he said calmly, "Let's go to Hiruzen." Luffy looked at Shisui, who was kneeling on the ground, covering his head and screaming in pain. Konoha's ninja must sacrifice for the village. This sentence is like a thought stamp, firmly engraved in the mind of every Konoha ninja. Shisui didn't want to betray the village with his tribe. That's why he wanted to use other gods to put an end to the tribe's rebellion. Thoughts. Unexpectedly, Danzo suddenly took away his left eye. Shisui thought that committing suicide at this time would not only weaken Uchiha's fighting power, but also cause him no need to explain why he lost his left eye. The greater hatred between Konoha and the tribe. Shisui was willing to give up his life for the sake of peace between the two sides. In the days after his death, Shisui still thought about it because he knew that the time to take action was very short. It's close. He doesn't want to see someone he knows die. He has never experienced this kind of dilemma, and he can always find a convenient way to deal with it. He punched Zisui on the back of the head and passed out. It's really annoying when a man always cries like this. If you have any worries, just take a nap and you'll be fine. This action startled the 4 jounin who had just come over and were hiding not far away. Internal strife. Yamafeng expressed his confusion. At this distance, you can see each other's appearance clearly without a tracking bug. The 4 jounin were very curious. Who was the person who painted the Hokage every day these days? They observed Luffy carefully. This boy was wearing a straw hat, a red vest, and blue shorts. There was a scar under his left eye. He couldn't feel any chakra fluctuations from his body. He looked really ordinary. It's him. Naruto asked Abarame-tun. The other 2 people also looked at Abarame-tun. Although they didn't speak, they expressed the same question with their eyes. Don't you mistake the wrong person? Abarame-tun looked serious. Said even if the opponent uses transformation or clone techniques, they can't get rid of my tracking bug. You can't go wrong. It's him. Shanfeng and Abarame-takejin are old partners. He noticed that the other party's expression was wrong and asked what's the problem. Abarame-tun didn't answer, and kept staring in the direction of Luffy. Seeing that he didn't reply, Yamazaka followed Abarame-tun's gaze and looked over. That's Uchiha Shisui. Naruto had served in the police force and was familiar with Shisui's appearance. He's not dead. Was the information Itaka gave wrong? The Abarame took the root cautiously, stretched out her palm, and a black insect flew out. Things have changed. We'll wait for Danzo-sama's orders. It's been a long time since we went on a mission together, Danzo. Sarutobi Hiruzen said with a slightly nostalgic tone. Both of them were students of the second Hokage Senju Tobirama. They studied together and did tasks together when they were very young. Danzo snorted and said nothing. Etc. Danzo suddenly stopped. Sarutobi Hiruzen also stopped and looked over. On the tip of Danzo's finger, a small black insect disappeared in a flash. Sarutobi Hiruzen knew that it was a barame. The clan's voice messaging bug. This is a disposable bug that can't fly very far and can only transmit one sentence. This bug is specially cultivated by the Abarame clan and used to transmit messages in team battles. His brows furrowed, and a trace of gloom flashed across his face. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought to himself, I don't know what words came from the front that made Danzo look so ugly. What's wrong? After Danzo didn't speak for a while, Sarutobi Hiruzen asked. Uchiha Shisui is still alive. Sarutobi Hiruzen was stunned. Where is he? Uchiha Shisui was very loyal to the village, and Sarutobi Hiruzen saw it. Danzo took away Shisui's eyes, causing Shisui to commit suicide. Sarutobi Hiruzen was very dissatisfied. However, he was dissatisfied, and there was nothing he could do. He could only mock Danzo occasionally. Now that he found out that Shisui was not dead, Sarutobi Hiruzen subconsciously wanted to know where he was. Danzo slowly raised his hand and pointed forward. It's right in front, follow. Your attackers are together. Sarutobi Hiruzen's pupils shrank sharply. The attacker in the past few days actually knew Shisui. Are the two colluding? Chapter 15. The third Hokage looked at Danzo with a gloomy face. Why is Shisui still alive? Unexpectedly, Danzo's face looked uglier than him at this time. Since Shisui is still alive, that's a big problem. It means Uchiha Itachi lied. Or maybe Shisui had tricked his best friend. Both outcomes are dismal. Uchiha Itachi is the only Uchiha clan member who has completely fallen in love with Konoha. The intelligence he provided contained concealed or even falsified information. This means that there will be big problems in the subsequent Uchiha genocide plan. To take a step back, Uchiha Itachi had no problem. Shisui had deceived him with a trick. What does Shisui want to do? Why is he here? What is his relationship to the attacker? Are the two planning a conspiracy against Konoha together? Are there any other accomplices? Things are beyond control, which is a situation that no one in power wants to encounter. Danzo's eyes flashed with fierceness, and his feet quickened. Soon, the two of them came behind Abarame Torajin. Arrest these two. Leave it to Yizixi for a good interrogation. Yes. Abarame Torin replied respectfully. The other three people have already separated to ambush. If you want to attack silently, you have to capture them alive. Among the four, the one who is most suitable for this task is Narasazaku. He can be captured from the police force. Danzo chose Northeast by East because he excelled in many team battles. Another message bug flew out of Abarame's hand and flew silently in the direction of Narasazaku's ambush. Go. Ouch, why did you hit me? Zisui asked, covering the back of his head. Luffy didn't really exert any force, and Shisui woke up after being unconscious for a few minutes. Crying and crying is so worthless. Luffy said with disgust. He sat in front of the bonfire, and the shadow behind him was stretched very long by the light of the bonfire. Actually, your problem is easy to solve. Luffy looked at Shisui with a painful look on his face and said confidently. Say it quickly. Any solution? Zisui suddenly raised his head and looked at Luffy. Although his eyes no longer had eyeballs, they still glowed with joy. This scene was both funny and a little scary. Luffy often looked at Brook, who had no eyeballs and was a skeleton, so he don't care about Shisui's gazing. Very simple. Real. To be able to teach such a powerful secret method as the Haki of Wisdom and Colors, the advice given must be very reliable. Shisui is looking forward to it. The purpose of your clan leader's rebellion was to become Hokage, right? Forward, you can say that. Ji Shui nodded and said. Can you suggest that he change his name and just call him Hokage? If you become Hokage without fighting, wouldn't it be peaceful? What about my suggestion? Luffy said with a serious face. If Uchiha Takeru was nearby, he would have laughed on the spot and mocked Luffy. However, Shisui had a serious face and shook his head very seriously to explain. I'm afraid not. The clan leader wants Hokage's power, not Hokage's name. Then your clan leader is a bad guy for starting a rebellion for his own selfish interests? Wouldn't it be possible to achieve peace if you beat him away? Shisui sighed and said, since the death of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, the Uchiha clan has been gradually isolated, and now it is equivalent to being isolated in disguise. The dissatisfaction of the clan members is accumulating more and more. If the clan leader does not do this, he will not be able to calm the anger of the clan members. The first clan leader, Madara Uchiha, incited his clan members to defect to Konoha, which made Konoha's top officials unhappy. 5 years ago, the Nine Tails suddenly attacked Konoha, with 3 Megatama Sharingan patterns appearing in their eyes. It cannot be said that Konoha was wary of Uchiha. There will be a conflict between the two sides soon. I have tried my best to stop it. What bothers me is that both sides have reasons and there is no way to blame any one person or organization. So, Luffy, I can't solve the problem by knocking someone away. Luffy thought carefully and said. How can peace rely on negotiation? Isn't peace the result of fighting? If you can't get along, don't be together. I think what your first-generation patriarch said is right. This sentence sounded like a thunder in Shisui's mind, impacting the will of fire education that Shisui had received since childhood. Shisui was stunned on the spot. Peace created? The stronger the strength, the more peaceful? He immediately thought of the first Hokage Senju Hashirama. The various scenes of quarrels within the clan in the past few years were playing in his mind like a revolving lantern. Chief, we don't want to fight anymore. Are we leaving Konoha? But the Uchiha clan is here, and there are resources backed by Konoha. Everyone is used to it. If they start over. The Uchiha clan and the Senju clan jointly founded Konoha. Why are we like this now? No Uchiha has ever been Hokage, that's not fair. Uchiha Shisui kept mumbling to himself, and the expression on his face changed. He felt as if he had grasped the key to solving the problem, but he was almost there. Luffy didn't know why Shisui was so excited. He was just say whatever comes to mind. Luffy got a little bored by being alone, so he stood up and said. I have to go find the chef. Maybe there is some delicious barbecue there. Hey? Ah! He stood up and was about to take a step when he found that his legs were not working properly. Why can't I move my legs? Luffy was very confused. Shisui next to him also stood up and whispered, we have been hit by the shadow imitation technique. Ji Shui was not proficient enough in seeing and hearing haki and did not notice the sneak attack of the shadow imitation technique. Luffy knew nothing about ninjutsu and didn't care at all. The two of them just stood there straight. Shisui struggled hard, without moving his body. He sighed and said, it's a pity, if my Sharingan is still there, I can easily break this jutsu. This strength is probably that of a master of the Nara clan. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 people slowly walked out of the woods opposite. The leader was a bear taken, and on both sides were Yamaphase and Yamato. Obviously, this was Nara Suzaku hiding in the woods and using shadow imitation to control him. Luffy and Shisui. Sorry, Luffy. Zisui and Luffy stood side by side, looking forward, and apologized very sincerely. Why apologize? Luffy stood in the same posture and asked strangely. The other party must be here to catch me and make you suffer. Shisui explained. Don't take such small things to heart. Luffy said nonchalantly. After saying that, Luffy stretched out his little finger and picked his nostrils. Abarame took the root and was stunned. The mountain wind beside him couldn't help but said Suzaku is kidding? The Hokage-sama and Danzo-sama were both watching. At this time, they actually controlled the enemy to pick his nose? Yamato spoke for the first time. He probably wants to show his abilities in front of adults. By controlling multiple enemies and controlling each person's actions individually, Suzaku's shadow imitation technique has been mastered to a very terrifying level. Abarame. Tadajin snorted and said nothing. She agreed with Yamato's point of view in her heart. After all, the three of them are members of the Root, and Nara Suzaku was transferred from the police force, so the relationship is a little bit worse. Nara Suzaku in the woods, can't believe my eyes. Did I just pick my nose? Chapter 16. Nara Suzaku suspected that there was something wrong with his eyes. Immediately, he no longer had any doubts. He watched helplessly as his left hand was raised uncontrollably again, his little finger stretched out straight, inserted into his nostril very naturally, and stirred vigorously. With a pop, the little finger was pulled out. Feeling the sense of transparency coming from his nostrils, Nara Suzaku did not feel the refreshing feeling after picking his nostrils at all, but broke into a cold sweat. A feeling of fear shot up from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, making his scalp numb. He used the shadow imitation technique and was actually controlled by the other party. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He suddenly remembered that the elders of the clan had mentioned that there was a loophole in the shadow imitation technique that was not a loophole. The shadow imitation technique controls the enemy. Without the help of others, it may be cracked by the opponent with brute force. However, the opponent needs to use at least 3 times the power of the caster to crack it. We are all ninjas. No matter how different our physical strength is, it cannot be 3 times worse. Therefore, ninjas who understand this ninjutsu have a consensus that the shadow imitation technique cannot be broken by other methods except illusion. In the woods, Suzaku Nara hid his body and used the shadow imitation technique to prevent the opponent from using illusion attacks. Unexpectedly, the other party would crack his ninjutsu in such an absolutely impossible way. Even if it is cracked, can it still be controlled in reverse? Shadow mimicry, solution. Nara Suzaku immediately released the shadow imitation technique. Fortunately, Nara Suzaku wiped away cold sweat. You can eliminate the opponent's control by disabling this technique. Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo were standing next to Nara Suzaku chatting. That boy in the straw hat, is he the one who attacked you these days? Danzo asked casually as he observed Luffy carefully. It's him. Sarutobi Hiruzen recognized Luffy at a glance. The day before yesterday, Luffy only covered his face with a piece of black cloth, and he didn't change his clothes or the iconic straw hat. Coupled with his body shape and characteristics, with Sarutobi Hiruzen's veteran skills with his eyes, Danzo recognized him at a glance and saw that the shadow imitation technique easily controlled Luffy, and he couldn't help but think scornfully, that's it. The enemy who has been tormenting you for 4 days is at this level. Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but feel a thump in his heart when he saw the enemy being controlled, and then Danzo's taunting voice immediately came to his ears. Sure enough, Danzo would not let go of the opportunity to mock me. Ever since the teacher chose me to be Hokage, Danzo has always been unconvinced. Sarutobi Hiruzen occasionally responded, but most of the time he didn't care about Danzo. This paint incident was really ugly, and only Sarutobi Hiruzen did it. Will be so broken. Applying paint was a prank like Naruto's. Sarutobi Hiruzen was very angry. He really didn't take it seriously in the past 2 days. As soon as he encountered a small problem, he summoned 4 elite jounin. Konoha only had a total of how many jounin? This is not a joke. What's more, Sarutobi Hiruzen is confident in his own strength. But in this world, there are problems like moon in water that seem to be solved by reaching out. Only to realize that you can't reach him no matter how much you stretch out your hand. The best way for Sarutobi Hiruzen to respond to Danzo's ridicule is to remain silent or change the subject. Suzaku, what are you doing? Sarutobi Hiruzen noticed something was wrong with Nara Suzaku's movements. Why do you keep picking your nose? As a ninja, you need to pay attention to personal hygiene. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the straw hat boy picking his nostrils over there, and then at Nara Suzaku. Danzo snorted and said, "Control the enemy to pick his nostrils? Humph, childish." Nara Suzaku had just released the shadow imitation technique, and said in a panic, "Danzo-sama, I was controlled just now." Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo were shocked. "Are you being controlled? What do you mean?" The next second, the two shadow-level ninjas instantly understood what was going on and turned to look towards Luffy. Not good. 3 minutes ago. The three elite jounin looked at the controlled straw hat boy in front of them who kept picking his nostrils without looking at the three of them. Shanfeng sneered and said, "This Nara Suzaku is necessary showing off family secrets like this? Of all of you present, who doesn't have your own unique skills?" Yamato nodded in agreement. Abaramatajan also frowned, but still commanded a use would release to control the two of them, etc. Shanfeng interrupted, "Didn't he want to show off? We will fulfill him. The shadow imitation technique consumes a lot of chakra, so we will do it after a few minutes to let Suzaku perform more. Anyway, at this distance, even if you are not controlled, you can't escape." Nonsense! Have you forgotten the rules of the ninja handbook? How could a ninja be so irrational when performing a mission? Although Abaramatajan also felt that Nara Suzaku was a bit arrogant, as the temporary captain, she still reprimanded Yamaphase for his ridiculous proposal. They have all. Before Shanfeng finished speaking, he saw Shisui suddenly moving. This shadow imitation technique was actually lifted. Shisui used Haki to sense the three ninjas in front of him, and in an instant made a comparison of the strength of the enemy and ourselves. If Luffy hadn't been there, Shisui would probably have surrendered for the sake of peace in the village. "I just heard about Luffy's deeds of painting Naruto." Shisui felt he had to save Luffy's life. After all, how can we talk about peace in the ninja world if we don't even save the life of our savior? While Shisui was thinking of a solution, he suddenly felt his body relax, and the shadow imitation technique was actually lifted. No matter what the reason is for the other party to cancel the shadow imitation technique. As a talented ninja, he will naturally not let go of any flaw his enemies reveal in battle. Shisui reached out and grabbed Luffy by the back of his neck, pulling him back quickly. Hey! What happened? Luffy was pulled into the air with a puzzled look on his face. Wooden release, big forest jutsu. Yamato's quick eyesight and quick hands immediately used the wooden release ninjutsu. His right arm instantly turned into a big tree and stretched out many a wooden vine branch wrapped around Shisui. Shisui was dodging freely among the countless vines. "Oh, does it have the same ability as General Green Bull?" Luffy looked at the wooden bars coming around, curious and excited. Shisui's sense of sight and color sensed that 3 more people were coming from the forest opposite. No, it's the third Hokage and Danzo. He didn't want to fight the Hokage, and the current strength was very difficult for the 3 Jonin in front of him, let alone 2 more ninjas with cage-level strength. He made a prompt decision and formed a seal with one hand. Suddenly, he was carrying Luffy in the original place. The ground disappeared. Luffy raised his fist happily. What happened? He threw out a punch, and the punch was empty. Shisui ignored Luffy's ghostly screams, and just flashed continuously like a ghost, and the 3 of them were tens of meters away from Abarame Tegan. Abarame. Just as Onator Igen and the other 2 were about to use their ninjutsu, a large group of crows rushed towards them. When the crows dispersed, Shisui and the Straw Hat Boy had disappeared. Is this the power of Shunshen Shisui? Abaramatajan looked at the direction where Shisui disappeared and murmured to herself. Chapter 17. What an instant Shisui! Danzo and Hiruzen Sarutobi had just arrived, and saw Shisui disappearing in a few flashes. What happened? Obviously they were under control. These jonins could catch them at will, but why were they suddenly released from control and everyone ran away? Danzo was very angry and asked Narasozaku, who was following behind him. Narasozaku said helplessly, "Sir, my shadow imitation technique has been cracked." Shisui carried Luffy and ran several kilometers in just 5 minutes. Then, with a pop, Luffy was thrown into the Nanga River. Shisui also jumped down. After more than 10 minutes, Shisui struggled to drag Luffy to the shore from the other side. Bang! Luffy was thrown on the grass, spitting river water from his mouth. Even though he has become the Pirate King, he still can't swim. Zisui said with an apologetic look on his face, "I didn't expect that you can't swim." Oops, almost drowned. What are you doing, Shisui? Luffy spat out the water, and then complained. Shisui sat beside him and panted and explained, "We can't fight, so we can only escape." Luffy said unconvinced, "How do you know you can't beat me if you haven't tried it?" "No need to try. You don't know those people, but I know them all. With 4 jonin, plus the 3rd Hokage and Danzo, we have no hope of winning. Moreover, you have been vomiting blood recently and should see a doctor as soon as possible." I don't know why, but the shadow imitation technique was suddenly lifted. All I can say is that we are lucky. If the shadow imitation technique is released 1 minute later, when the 3rd Hokage and Danzo come over, I won't be able to escape even with the teleportation technique. What a risk, what a risk. Ji Shui thought about the situation just now, and felt a little sweat in his heart. That old man, is he so powerful? Luffy also sat up at this time, touching his chin and asked. The 3rd Hokage was painted by him every day, and Luffy said he didn't see the difference. Shisui said, "That's because the 3rd Hokage doesn't care about you. Judging from today's battle, you have indeed made the 3rd Hokage angry, so you have arranged such a powerful pursuit team. We need somewhere to hide for the next few days. Then when I go to apply paint tomorrow, I'm going to have a good fight with that old man." Luffy nodded, but Shisui didn't listen at all to what he said later. "I jumped into the river just now and my breath has been wiped off my body. The insects of the Aberame clan should not be able to track our whereabouts." Shisui suddenly felt something was wrong. "What did you say?" "I have to go tomorrow." Several people present were stunned after hearing Narasozaku's words. Shadow mimicry has been cracked? How many minutes does it take to go from control to crack? Can you crack the shadow imitation technique in such a short time? Didn't you feel that Shisui cast a genjutsu? The Straw Hat Boy next to him had no chakra fluctuations at all, and no ninjutsu at all. It was absolutely impossible for him to crack the shadow imitation technique. Shanfeng said with an expression of disbelief. Shisui lost his eyes, but he was still able to use illusions to affect Sozaku hiding in the woods? We didn't notice it at all. Is this the ability to instantly stop water? Narasozaku thought, so it turns out that it's not the opponent's strength, but Shisui's illusion. The tracking bug released by Aberame took the route, flew around for a long time, and then flew back. My lord, the target has been lost. Do you want to activate your root skills and search this area? He said to Danzo. Danzo hadn't spoken yet. Hiruzen Sarutobi waved his hand, interrupting Abarame's words. Forget it, he's just a naughty boy who doesn't know ninjutsu. No more wasting energy chasing. Danzo said in a cold tone. Shisui is still alive. This is a big problem. If Shisui loses his Sharingan, can he still use the teleportation technique? Sarutobi Hiruzen changed the subject. Looking at the direction where Shisui disappeared, Danzo said thoughtfully. This kid knows 2 kinds of teleportation techniques. The first one is a technique he developed based on his Sharingan ability when he was young. He can instantly separate multiple shadow clones that can change reality within a specific range. He can quickly shuttle among these shadow clones to attack enemies. The second is, it is a technique developed in his youth. It can perform seals with one hand and can move at high speed within a specific range. What he just used was the second type of instantaneous body technique. Do you know it in detail? Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded. What else can happen in the village escaped my eyes. There was a proud look on Danzo's face. Why didn't you tell me? Sarutobi Hiruzen asked, changing the subject. Write it in the weekly newspaper, but you won't read it yourself. Danzo shouted angrily. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. As the top leader of Konoha, all kinds of entertainments left him no time to understand these irrelevant things. What a Uchiha genius you have turned against you, Danzo. Sarutobi Hiruzen said with a gloomy face. Faced with Sarutobi Hiruzen's question, Danzo said calmly. Hokage-sama, the plan for Uchiha needs to be accelerated. Didn't I say, give me a little more time to find a solution that gets the best of both worlds? Sarutobi Hiruzen was a little impatient. Shisui is not dead. If the plan continues, there are too many variables. Danzo's expression was not very good. Danzo said in a deep voice, Hiruzen, the plan to deal with the Uchiha clan cannot be delayed any longer. This is also the teacher's last wish. Senju Tobirama's dislike of Uchiha was perfectly passed on to Danzo. Although the teacher hated the Uchiha clan back then, he suppressed them with one hand and attracted them with the other, and even accepted Uchiha Mirror as his disciple. Your blind suppression now will only be counterproductive. Wait a little longer and take action, Before Sarutobi Hiruzen finished speaking, Danzo interrupted impatiently. What are you waiting for? Wait for them to take action first? That way more people will be killed. Danzo said with an expression that said letting you become the Hokage is definitely a major mistake in the teacher's life. Look at you, what have you done? In your hands, Konoha village will only become more and more declining. Sarutobi Hiruzen saw Danzo. The bandaged right eye recalled Shisui's figure just now. Does Lord Hokage also hope that the Uchiha rebellion can be resolved peacefully? Yes, do you have any ideas? I can use the power of the Manjiki Sharingan to make the Uchiha clan loyal to Konoha forever. This way there would be no need for bloodshed. Very good. Sarutobi Hiruzen remembered the conversation he had with Shisui that day. A few days later, news of his suicide came. Just in the past few days, people have been coming over to put paint on Sarutobi Hiruzen's body. Today I saw Shisui who was blind. Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly realized that it turned out to be Shisui's resentment towards himself. Hey, Shisui is really a kind child. Is it just a prank that you are dissatisfied with me? Sarutobi Hiruzen thought with a secret sigh. Danzo was still rambling, and what he meant was to directly destroy the Uchiha to avoid long nights and nightmares. Seeing Danzo being so aggressive, Sarutobi Hiruzen shouted angrily. Danzo! I am the Hokage. Becoming Hokage is Danzo's lifelong goal. Not to be outdone, Danzo shouted, you will regret it. Hiruzen. Usually when Danzo said this, he would slam the door and leave. This is not the Hokage's office. There is no door to slam, so Danzo felt that it was not very satisfying. So, he threw his sleeves into the air. The soft clothes the sleeve was like a long whip, making two crisp sounds in the air. Danzo then snorted and walked away. The four jounin stood there and looked at each other. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed and thought. Danzo, if this Hokage asks you to do this, Konoha will only collapse faster.